The tale kicks off in a quiet town where the sun blasts the rooftops like it owns the sky. Guy snaps at Ryuji, our poor protagonist, who's just standing there, stunned, like, why am I here all of a sudden? What's the catch? Guy says, since the rest of the crew's out on a job, I was going to call it everyone's getting the day off. But he locks eyes with Ryuji and declares, loud and clear starting today, he's officially thrown out of the party. Ryuji just freezes there, totally shell-shocked. He can't even wrap his head around what his leader said, like it's always been in those barn stories. But this time, he doesn't hold back and straight up asks if the truth is he has zero clue how useless he becomes the moment things turn violent. Then he trails off like, but Ryuji just shrugs it off because of course it's true. His whole job is keeping the team alive as a support-focused enchanter. He grabs Guy by the attention and reminds him, you're the one who told me I'd be a burden on the front lines, so I should just stick to making magic stones and boosting the team. He's basically saying, sure, you matter, but compared to Manori and Suzu, the real heavy hitters and the backbone of the crew, what are you? It's a total nightmare if Guy expects him to carry his share the exact same way they do. He slams his hand on the table, screams that their rank will never rise because of him, and then calls Ryuji an idiot for. He totally calls it out. Everyone else in the party has already climbed to second rank, while Ryuji is still trapped down on third. So yeah, those berserkers will never get stamped as a real high-level party. And Guy keeps hammering the point over and over. So yeah, at this pace, they can kiss goodbye to ever grabbing first rank because they're stuck fighting for third like it's their permanent home. Ryuji stays totally silent, but then it hits him. He stares at Guy like the answer finally just clicked. He pauses and remembers the old days, just him and his two stepsisters, Manori and Suzu. That was the party the three of them set up in the first place, and Guy was the one who shoved his way into their group. Ryuji starts talking and tells Guy to hang on a second because the moment it clicks, he realizes exactly what's going on. He corners Guy and demands, tell me, did you join our group just to boot Ryuji out from the very first day? He barrels on, pressing for the truth. Was that really why Guy made Sean take his sisters out on a job this morning, just to shove them out of the way? Guy snapped at Ryuji to stop inventing lies, then shot him a nasty look and said trash like him is exactly what gets tossed aside. Ryuji freezes in the dark, realizing shadowing a guy like this was a massive mistake. He blurts that he finally gets it. But he doesn't just slip away quietly. He rips into Guy's face and screams that he's done with the whole group for good. Ryuji yanks out a scrap of paper and tells Guy, I'm taking back every magic stone you ever borrowed from me, every last one. He raises the official document like a weapon, proving right now that he wasn't joking about that gun. A guy just stands there totally dumbfounded, blurting, wait, what are you talking about? Because he genuinely thought every stone was shared party property. Ryuji cuts him off on the spot, jabs the paper with his finger, and lays it out plain. This contract says the stones were a loan, not some gift. He keeps the pressure on, warning that if the guy doesn't hand them back, he'll gladly take it to court and settle it for real. Ryuji just lets it hit him, completely calm as Guy's sweating starts to pour. He points out, straight to the truth, that Guy is missing the rare stones of sublimation, so Guy just stands there, utterly stunned, with nothing left to say. Ryuji can't believe the irony. This guy acts like he's above enchanters, like he's looking down on them, while he leans in and asks, like, are you seriously just going to coast on magic stones from here on out? Guy loses it, screams at him to shut up, then snaps that. He's had it, he snaps, hurls a stone straight for Ryuji's chest. Ryuji doesn't even blink. He just calls it a perfect throw and then confirms that. It's the full stack of what he was owed before he finally tells Guy goodbye. As Ryuji storms out the door, he orders Guy to go say hi to Manori and Suzu. He tossed the old party behind him and headed straight for a quiet tavern, shutting out the noise so he could think. He sits there, eyes racing through choices, knowing the money's in his pocket but with zero real leads yet, and then he does. He decides not to sweat it, because his sisters are tough enough to catch sight of him later. Ryuji starts plotting how he needs to kick off some networking and make his move, but his thoughts get wrecked when a girl nearby screams that she's officially finished teaming up with her partner. Lene looks absolutely crushed, and he blurts, Marie, why are you doing this out of nowhere? Marie snaps back, saying she's just repeating what everyone's already saying. Lene's an alchemist who only makes medicine, so why does she have to keep swallowing the burden of finishing quests alone? Ryuji just sinks into his seat, sipping his drink, thinking that getting kicked out of a party must be the new trend but he quickly clocks the truth better to stay out of it and just watch from the shadows. Lene tries to brace herself and insists, "I'm no fighter," so she pushed for offensive potions in the right gear instead. But Marie barrels in, shuts her down mid-sentence, and screams that her lack of combat skills is the exact problem. She launches into a fiery rant about how she despises having to split the gold she fought tooth and nail for gold earned from a clash with someone she swears is completely useless. Slams the table and roars that the whole situation is beyond ridiculous. Marie wraps it up by saying she's already been scouted by a top-tier squad called Berserk, so now Lene is just the obstacle in her way. Marie hurls a cold goodbye over her shoulder as she storms off, leaving Lene rooted to the spot, completely stunned, and Lene just drops into her seat at the empty table, while Marie storms for the exit like it's nothing. Hold up, smash that like button, then hit subscribe. For more hidden manga gems, and now go on, I dare you to comment. Seriously comment, I'm loving this, and I bet most of you feel the same. So you're not going to do it, fine, then let's keep going. While Lene slumps in the shadows wallowing in self-pity, Ryuji strides up and asks if he can grab a seat, making Lene stared at her with watery eyes, begging him to tell her who he even was. Ryuji tells her friend to just move on, then oops, lets slip that the guy who got kicked out of Berserk is none other than him. He blurts out a quick apology for Eve ruining her business, but Lene waves it off and tells him it's okay, as he proudly introduces himself as Ryuji, a third-class enchanter. He's just trying to break the ice and be friendly. Lene's swagger storms back on the scene as an alchemist, then drops the bomb that she's also a third-class rank, and tells him, in shock, that her party straight up crumbled right in his face. Ryuji shoves a cloth into her hands and tells her to wipe those tears for now, and Lene breathes out her gratitude, thanking him for his kindness. Ryuji flashes her a small smile and tells her, "I know you're dealing with a lot," then points out that they're both outcasts now, so he suggests they grab a drink, kick back, and breathe. Lene agrees to hang out, then quickly reminds him she's still a minor and can't actually touch the alcohol, but she's totally down to stick around and keep him company. They huddle together in the tavern as Ryuji wraps up his tale, telling her straight up that's basically the whole reason he ended up alone. He explains that it was his leader, Guy, who kicked him out, and he can't stop laughing at the irony somehow. They both landed in the same place. Ryuji shrugs off the tension when Lene tells him he can just call her by her name, so he fires back that from now on, she's got to call him Ryuji too. She starts sounding a little too formal for her age, but Ryuji shrugs it off and tells her it's honestly no big deal. Ryuji slams the conversation to a new topic and asks if she'll show him some of her medicine because he's seriously itching to see what she can make. Lene smiles and tells him it's totally okay, then digs into her gear and pulls something out so he can see it. She slams 2 sharp glass vials onto the table and tells you, with pride blazing in her eyes, that these are the newest things she's just managed to craft. As Ryuji's sizing them up, Lene shoots, "Go ahead, touch the bottle, but don't you dare mess with the lid or the pin." He nods back, "Don't worry, I've got it." Lene lifts the vial and admits it took forever to craft, and you can tell she's beaming especially because it turned out perfect, and because. Once Ryuji peeks it over and spots nothing strange outside, he wastes no time. He fires off his magic to see what's really happening inside, and he snaps into his skill, praising it out loud, and a glowing magic circle erupts right in front of the bottle so that, then the stats slam onto the screen. What he's holding is a firebomb that erupts in flames within a 1-meter radius, and as he checks the power, he can't help it. He blurts out that this whole thing is straight up amazing. Ryuji blurts that his way is way stronger than the Berserk mage's magic, until that makes her snap and freak out, insisting he's just totally exaggerating. But then it clicks. This output crushes what Suzu the genius can pull off, and once he stitches in his own enchantment, the power's going to be downright unreal. So he leans in and asks her if she knows that simply being able to make something like this is already an insane accomplishment all by itself. And Lene looks down, finally admitting he's right because Marie told him the materials cost way too much, and she gives a tiny smile as she starts to speak, like she's about to spill the secret catch. Lene leans in and tells Ryuji she's dead serious about making something truly great, even if she has to crank herself past her limits to pull it off. She throws her whole heart into her work and asks him if helping someone with what she creates isn't the best thing ever. Ryuji cuts in and tells her she's dead on, then slams his hand on the table like a drum beat, saying he and Lene are basically the same while Lene just stares, stunned by how wild his sudden energy is. He tells you that as an enchanter, he's bursting with pride over every spell he can craft and every ounce of effort he pours into his work. And it hits him like a rush watching the stuff he makes finally out in the world, getting used to its absolute full power. Lene opens his mouth to say his name, but a brutal clatter from across the room snaps Ryuji's head around like something's gone terribly wrong. Some bald dude is throwing a full-on tantrum at his table, screaming at the staff to stop messing with him. He yells that every quest ends with beer and meat for him, but the manager just freezes there, looking slammed, struggling to squeeze out a single word. The adventure keeps getting loud about how he's only second rank, even though he's the one basically keeping the whole town's economy breathing. So the manager finally snaps, telling him the rare cut of meat he begged for is all sold out, yet the guy doesn't even flinch. Ryuji's already fuming. Sure, his timing for this conversation is finally dead on until that guy decides to kick off a whole scene. Lene shoots a look at the loud adventure and goes, "Ugh, I can smell the alcohol on you from across the room." She blurts, "So what are we even supposed to do about this?" But Ryuji clamps his hand over his mouth because a sudden idea hits him like a spark. He tells her she's right and says it wouldn't be fair to ask her to work with him without proving what he can actually do. Before she can even blink, he snatches a bottle of medicine off the table, claims he's borrowing it, and leaves her standing there, utterly baffled. Lene screams his name while Ryuji strides straight up to the bald guy and squares up to confront him face to face. The adventurer finally cuts off his yelling for a split second, then snarls at Ryuji, "Who the hell do you think you are?" Ryuji stayed calm, saying they were only trying to enjoy their drinks and begging the guy to keep the noise down just a little. The dude snaps at Ryuji to wipe that cocky smirk off his face, then demands his rank, so Ryuji shrugs and says he's a third-class enchanter. He glares even harder, growling that a low-ranked support who never even clashes on the front lines has no right to act so arrogant. Ryuji's face is ice-cold serious, and right beside him, Lene stares with wide, worried eyes like she's bracing for whatever he's about to do. He lets out a heavy sigh, grabs his head, and says, "Guy was the exact same people are obsessed with rank. That's all it is." He doubles down and says, "Look, I genuinely believe there are tons of other things just as important as some stupid rank number." The bald adventurer snaps, rants that it's all nonsense, then throws a punch and screams that Ryuji is ruining his drink. Ryuji doesn't even blink. He stares the guy straight in the eyes and tells him he's about to prove the truth. He raises the medicine bottle, snaps on his whirlwind enchantment, and wine magic spirals around his hand like it's alive. He brings up how that guy mocked him for not being a frontline fighter. Then he snaps, unleashing a massive burst of pressure. The wind slams in like a wrecking ball, and Ryuji growls that this isn't about ego, it's for the pride of every hard-working craftsman the jerk kept disrespecting. The adventurer gets blasted backward and slams into the ground with a brutal thud, while Ryuji just stands there like it doesn't even matter. The guy jolts up, bolts out, screaming his lungs out, and leaves Lene frozen in total shock, staring at the back of Ryuji's head as he disappears. Lene is completely stunned by what she just saw, whispering, "There's no way," like her whole world can't be real While everyone else in the tavern starts spiraling, they're not just impressed, they're roaring and shouting that his power is straight up unreal. Lene snaps his head toward Ryuji, still looking totally stunned, and blurts out, "What did you just do?" But Ryuji only flashes her a laid-back grin, tells her to cover the tab, and then pushes them to get moving. Saying it loud and clear, there's no way they're ever getting peace and quiet in a place like this. Once they step outside, he leans in and tells her her medicine's top tier, and if he'd used it the right way inside, that tavern would have been leveled. Lene just locks eyes with him and demands to know, did his enchantment magic really spark that whole explosion of power? He shrugs it off, grinning like, "Yep, just tossed a little wind magic into the mix." And he breaks down exactly how he steered the flames, bending their path so they never scorch a thing they shouldn't. He kept the real power bottled up, riding the wind just enough to stop the guy from landing in the hospital. Ryuji turns to Lene and addresses them straight as they stride along the cobblestone path, saying, "If he uses enchantment magic on medicine the same way he just did, it'll supercharge the effects or turn it into something way more useful." He halts mid-step, locks eyes with her, and demands, "Why won't you two team up, just us?" Lene slumps back on the park bench, totally thrown off, and blurts out, "So you mean you're really joining our adventuring party?" And Ryuji makes it crystal clear, no matter where he stands, even outside the party as a fellow craftsman, he's completely obsessed with the work she does. He tells her they could set up a workshop together, work side by side, and build a chill life that'll make everyone else green with envy. He imagines an enchanter and an alchemist teaming up, then sets his sights on showing the whole world exactly how wildly amazing they can be. Lene clenched her hands in her lap, quietly whispering that they'd run a workshop together over and over, like she couldn't stop the thought from repeating. Ryuji quizzes her on what she thinks, then leans in and says he believes it's a pretty fair deal for both of them. Tears sparkle in Lene's eyes as she looks at him and blurts out, "Yes," saying she'd absolutely love to join him. Right when the clock tower slams 3, a voice suddenly shouts across the way and locks onto Ryuji. Guildmaster Emon barrels in and demands whether the rumors are real, Ryuji quitting the Berserk party and slipping out town, and Lene steps forward to confirm it. Emon's jaw drops when he sees Lene is walking out too, but she just grins, thanks him for everything he's done for her all these years, and lets it land. Emon rubs his head, saying the guild's got a strict rule against joining party fights, but he just can't. But he can't help it. He fires a question at Ryuji. What's he planning to do about Manori and Suzu now that he's gone? Lene looks totally confused and blurts, "Are those two the top guys from the Berserk guild leading?" Ryuji calmly told them the truth. Those swordsman and mage weren't allies at all. They were his younger stepsister's side of the family. Then it all finally clicks for Lene. She gets the real reason he's been locked onto them this whole time. Ryuji strides up, digs into his gear, and tells the guild master, "I've got one last thing I need help with." He thrusts a package into Emon's hands and orders him to deliver it to his sisters while making damn sure Guy never gets a clue. Emon freezes in silence for a heartbeat, and you can practically feel the weight of that request crushing down on him. Then he snaps his eyes shut and announces with total confidence, "I've got it," and promises he'll make sure the sisters get the package. Right by the gate, Emon glares at the two of them and fires off, "So where are you guys even trying to go now?" Ryuji breaks it down. He's set on going to a farther town, so you can team up with him and open that workshop together. Emon flashes them a small wave and tells them he's certain they'll cross paths again one day, so they better look after themselves until then. He adds one final push, telling Ryuji to ditch the worry and leave Manori and Suzu's well-being entirely up to him because he's got it. Ryuji grins as he glances back, then flashes the guildmaster a heartfelt thank you. With a grin that lights up their face, Lene slips right in and tells the guildmaster to stay safe too, because they're finally starting their way out. They head down the dirt road, fleeing the city, but after a while, Lene leans in and speaks up, yanking his attention. She demands to know if it's really official. Are they actually moving to Salzstadt after all? Ryuji points out that the main road slices straight through town, and it's right near a magic stone mine. So this is the perfect opening for them to finally team up and build their very own workshop together. He says, "Because we're walking, it'll take us about half a month to reach our destination." Even though Lene knows she has to cut costs, the thought of that long trip keeps clawing at her worries. She snaps at him that there's no choice left. Both of them got thrown out, and with no money coming in, they've got to keep moving. So Ryuji adds, "Yeah, we're going to need to hunt down some real cash if we want to build this shop the moment we get there." He flashes her a grin and tells her, "We've got all the time in the world, so kick back and take it easy." Lene glances back at him, nodding like, "Yeah, you're probably right. Let's just kick back and enjoy the ride." As they head down the road, Ryuji declares that Lene is under his protection from this day on, and Lene beams right back, saying the same. They rode on together under a sky full of stars as their brand new lives finally ignited on night one. Deep in the woods, a pack of bandits spots travelers, and when they clock their armor, they realize it's the royal army. The crew's leader snickers at the knights, ragging on how sharp they look, saying the taxpayers paid for all that fancy gear. The guards snap to attention and realize the bandits are hitting them from an ambush, and the lead knight shouts for Lady Cece to get back. But the bandit leader just grins and tells them, flat out, he's not saying it twice, drop every last thing of value and get out. Lady Cece looks worried, like she can already feel something terrible is about to blow up before they even reach the frontier. Meanwhile, Ryuji tilted his gaze to the stars, like they were calling him out, and he decided it was finally time to set up camp for the. Lene says, keep this pace and we'll hit Salzstadt tomorrow. And Ryuji just nods like he's already in motion. As they finally get settled, Lene can't sit still. He turns to Ryuji and blurts out, so why'd you even choose to become an enchanter? Ryuji glances off to the side and tells her it's going to be a long story, but he's ready to tell it anyway. The campfire keeps snapping and crackling right between them as they catch their breath for the brutal long walk ahead. Ryuji stares into the flames and blurts out that the Sakura Empire is way out on the eastern edge of the continent Lene. That's exactly where he grew up. He tells you the town gets its name from cherry blossoms, and normally this is exactly the time when the whole country should be covered in blooms. But then his mood flips. He admits that after the war, he has no clue whether those gorgeous views still exist. Lene is completely blindsided, staring at him as he blurts, so you're telling me there really was a civil war back in your homeland? Ryuji nods and admits the truth, staring back at the day he lost both his parents when he was only 12 years old. He still remembers the panic of fleeing the country, grabbing the little sister's Manori, and yanking Suzu along, fighting through choking smoke. After the fighting swept their families away, they were left with absolutely nothing. Ryuji tells him that's a mountain for anyone to carry, and Ryuji just nods along quietly, admitting it really was. Then he says everything flipped the moment the master took them in, training them in every skill they'd need to survive on their own. He repeats the name again and again, and his mind races. Who is this mystery person, really? Ryuji glances at his drink and points out the guy never even gave them a name, so Ryuji just calls him Master. And then he admits that man was brutal as hell, but he's also the same one who drilled him in the basics of fighting and magic. Turns out Master was the first to clock it too. Ryuji had real talent for enchantment. And Ryuji grins, telling everyone that all that training finally clicked, like he just found his true calling. Then he hits Lene with a jaw-dropping bombshell. Her teacher is an elf, just like her, and it leaves her completely stunned and hands him yet another gut punch. Reason he can't just turn around and walk away, leaving her to face it alone. He admits the thought of her being used by people who don't have a clue what she's truly worth makes his stomach twist. Then he halts, bows his head, and throws out an apology because dragging her into this was never about her. It was just him trying to feel better about what happened. Lene's completely flustered. She blurts at Ryuji to stop bowing it right, telling me that since they're both stuck in the same mess now, there's no point in him stressing over it anymore. Lene flashes a grin and tells Ryuji she's genuinely happy he reached out to her at the guild. Then she opens her mouth to say more. Ryuji just stares at her and breathes out, saying it's a huge relief to hear she feels that way. He's smiling so hard it's clear he's genuinely happy that nothing feels weird between them anymore. Then he suddenly remembers the medicine she showed him back at the tavern and tells her he's got a stash of magic stones he's been dying to show her. Lene's eyes light up, and she can't wait. Yeah, I want to see them. So Ryuji shoots out his gloved hand and yanks them free while Lene is completely blindsided. She can't wrap her head around it. Those magic stones look exactly like giant, jaw-dropping jewels worth a fortune. Ryuji tells them the truth. Your power doesn't stay the same. It shifts based on how cleanly and skillfully someone can cut and mold them. He starts calling them out one by one: adamant, frigid, and sealing stones, and then he digs in, explaining exactly what each one does the moment he starts to talk about. The two of them suddenly freeze in place. Lene cranes his neck, feeling something off in the air as instantly he's on full alert. Leah snaps, "What's happening?" And he shoots back, "Look over there by the trees." Ryuji slams on the brakes and leans in because he can hear them hard brawling all around, metal clashing at full volume, so that means. When Lene realizes this is getting dangerous, she blurts that she can't hear a word they're saying, yet it still sounds like bandits. Ryuji locks onto the noise without blinking because with the fight right on top of them, they can't pretend it's someone else's problem anymore. He says if those guys are really bandits, then they'll probably get targeted next anyway. Ryuji whips around to Lene and says he's ready to jump in and help, but he needs to know one thing first: can she really fight? Lene doesn't hesitate for a second. She straight up tells him she's totally fine, then snaps that they've got to move fast. Ryuji signals them to move, and the two of them sprint straight toward the sounds of the fight. While they sprint, Ryuji leans in and promises her, "I'm using this opening to show you what these magic stones can really do in a real fight." Up ahead, the fight's already roaring, sparks are bursting, steel is smashing, and every hit lands like thunder. it looks like. Looks like the lead bandit is already crushing them. He taunts his opponents, barks, "What's wrong?" and realizes their moves are grinding to a halt. The guards are getting pushed back hard, and the main guy roars at everyone to stay locked in because they've got to protect Lady Cece no matter what it costs. Lene and Ryuji finally stumble into the clearing, and she jabs a finger toward the chaos, shouting that they found the place just as Ryuji. As Ryuji scans the area and blurts that he sees them, he whips around and asks Lene to draw their attention, and she's already moving, like she was one step ahead. She tells him to hand it over, then snaps her magic into place at once, a blazing circle forming right in front of her as she screams her chant and summons the flames to devour her enemies, then rains fire arrows straight into the bandits' crowd. A bandit gets struck dead on, and a brutal scream rips out of him as the magic hits with zero warning. The lead bandit snaps his head back. Stunned out of his mind, he never thought anyone else would show up. And the moment he realizes reinforcements are here, he knows he's in trouble. Ryuji slips straight into the middle of the brawl with a smirk, telling the guys he wants in on the fun right now. One of the bandits snaps, starts ripping into him with filthy curses, and Ryuji doesn't just stand there, he's moving, not talking. He slams his block in place, then instantly whips out a massive kick that launches the guy soaring through the air. Ryuji's face looks bored as hell, like he's asking, is this it? Because once he compares these bandits to Minori's skills, they don't even feel like a real threat. They feel like practice dummies. But one bandit spots a crack in the defense and slams forward at Ryuji's back, shouting that he's wide open only to get. Ryuji gets hit with a single clash, then his sword fires him back so hard the world blurs, and he doesn't even look over his shoulder. Just lets that idiot rocket away as the bandit loses it. He's frozen in shock, staring at his blade, trying to wrap his head around how his attack got deflected. Ryuji lifts a diamond monostone right in front of the guy's face and starts talking fast, showing him exactly how it works right down to the effect. It completely wipes out any physical hit on whoever's holding it, so he's still trying to process that shock when Ryuji rockets in and lands a punch that has him groaning. Meanwhile, on Lene's side, she's sealing the deal with magic. She yanks the air open and hurls out a deadly web of lightning, screaming her spark web spell to trap everyone. So the last bandits get shoved down and tied up on the dirt, and Ryuji scans the pile of them and asks Lene, "That's everyone?" Lene nods and says, "Yep, that's the whole crew." She strides in to check on the knights, and the lead guard tells her they're good. Then he thanks her for jumping in to help, and right then the peon. Then the hooded woman steps up with a grin, apologizes for the delayed introduction, and tells them, "I'm Lady Cece." The lady starts to step forward, but the lead knight snaps in and shuts her down, saying she can't do that. She looks totally rattled as she backs away. So Ryuji tries to keep it cool, telling her it's all fine, that he totally gets why they're staying low, and to stop stressing. Then he adds, "We only helped to make sure our own campsite stayed safe through the night." And Lene just stands there watching, frozen. The lead knight steps forward and blurts out how truly thankful he is, then turns to Ryuji and Lene and asks them to let his group take over from here and mop up the bandits. Lene stares into the night and spots the guards looking wrecked. Then she shouts at him and she yanks out a tiny potion bottle and asks if they want healing medicine, though she can't help worrying she's stepping on toes. But the knight drags on. He glances at his wounds and insists they're nothing, yet blood still pours from him. Ryuji clocks the whole vibe and shrugs like, "Yeah, it's totally normal to freak out when a total stranger hands you medicine and walks off." He lifts his own arm and flashes a tiny scratch like it's a badge of honor, then tells them he got it from some nasty bushes while they were sprinting over to help in that. Turns out the timing is dead on for the test. Lene stares at him, totally baffled, and blurts out what he's even trying to pull off. Ryuji tips the potion onto his scraped arm to prove it's harmless, and then watches closely as the moment hits, and leans in to tell the lead knight there's nothing off about the drink, then immediately asks if he wants it right now. So the other guards start shouting, "Pick us next," and the lead knight scrambles to cut them off, but Lady Cece strides in and snaps the night diet to calm down. Then she locks eyes with him and declares, "I'll take full responsibility for everything that happened." The knight starts to argue, but Lady Cece cuts him off with one icy look, and that's the end of the debate. Ryuji steps forward and says, "I'm Ryuji," then drops the big plan. He's setting up a workshop in Salzstadt. He tells the whole group, if you like what the medicine does, then come by and pay me a visit. Later, Ryuji blurts out that he finally clocked how high-ranking those people were and acted before he could think. Then he turns to Lene and apologizes for yanking her into the whole disaster, and he blurts out that he's sorry too for taking her medicine without even asking first. Lene says dealing with nobles is no big deal still. She's stunned he chugs the potion like it's nothing. Ryuji says it's only natural for a knight to stay on guard, and the choice that guy made was spot on. Then he stops mid-sentence like something's about to hit. So he finally admits that seeing Lene's good intentions get doubted like that just doesn't sit right with him. Lene freezes for a heartbeat, staff gripped tight, staring as he marches on ahead. She flashes him a warm smile and tells him that this kind of selfless move is exactly the kind of thing he always does. Ryuji throws his arms wide, glares at the sky getting late, and asks if it's time to head back to camp. Lene nods, agrees, and tells them to finally get some rest now so they're ready for tomorrow and back on track fast. Then the story whips to the far southwestern edge of the continent, right where Salzstadt city sits. It's the kingdom of Basestein's golden chess piece because that massive harbor makes it a strategic gold mine. That's the idea, but the woman standing right there looks like she's fighting a losing battle. Ryuji glances around the quiet building and blurts out that this town's way less lively than he'd ever imagined. And Lene nods along, saying it tracks perfectly with how messed up the Adventurers Guild is right now. Ryuji strides up to the counter, then awkwardly blurts out, "Is your name Anne?" I got to see where this leads, trying to. Before he can move in, he has to halt and drill the big question, is this place really Salzstadt or not? The receptionist looks absolutely wiped out as she double-checks they're in the right city, but even with roads stretching north and east and a mine sitting right around the corner, something feels wildly wrong. This spot used to be a giant waterside transportation hub, and the whole world knew Salzstadt as the place to be. So Lene just stares, completely baffled, and blurts out, "Wait, did I get that right?" Turns out, about a year ago, everything crashed to the ground when the magic stone supply dried up and the mine got shut down for good. Right as they started to drown in problems, a massive earthquake ripped through the area, smashed the port to pieces, and left the whole city with zero chance to rebuild. Anne explains that once fresh highways and brand new trade routes start popping up all over, lately it's like the whole town's been abandoned. People who used to stream through here just don't show up anymore. Ryuji just stands there, all tense and sweating stress. And yeah, this is nowhere near the energetic beginning he hoped for. Anne fires a question at Ryuji, what's his whole plan, and whether she should just jump in and process the residency paperwork anyway. But Lene cuts in and says, if Ryuji's willing, then I'm in too. Ryuji pauses for a split second, then decides to drop the full truth about why he's really here. He lays out the exact reason, burning in his chest, why he had to transfer to this one specific city. Outside the building, Anne's voice cuts through the air as she presses them one last time. Are they really sure about this? And Lene tells Ryuji that once she hears his reason, she's convinced this has to be their top priority, so when she tells him not to even sweat it, Ryuji shoots her a grateful look, then thanks her like she just saved the day. Then she tells them the registration's finally done, and she can't wait to team up with them. Lene leans in and tells her, we truly appreciate what you've done. Then Lene drops the bombshell he's talking about setting up a workshop right here in town. And they're already scouring the place, hunting for the perfect property to move into. Anne's eyes light up. She blurts out that if it's really like this, she already knows exactly who to call. Then he brought them to a guy named Thor. This dude could get them a super valuable intro at the Commerce Guild. Thor steps up, throws his name out like a battle cry, and tells the group, yeah, I've already heard everything about your situation from men. As they start moving, Thor leans in and points out, yeah, it's a brutal long walk to reach that exact property. And Ryuji chimes in saying, yeah, it's totally out on the outskirts, far from the middle of town. Thor points out that even from far away, the spot is perfect for a workshop because the rent is fair and the location hits the sweet spot. The crew finally pushes through and reaches the spot, and Thor immediately calls it out, we're here. Holding up a massive stone building like a prize, he showed them it was one of the properties waiting for them. Lene's jaw drops at how massive the place is, and Ryuji quickly points out it might be a little too big for comfort. But he can't resist the curiosity, so he asks Thor for permission and slips inside to check it out. The inside is caked in dust and tangled with cobwebs. screaming just how long nobody's been there. After sweeping the empty rooms with his eyes, Ryuji turns in and leans closer like he's desperate to catch what she's thinking. And she admits it's going to take a ton of scrubbing, but that nearby forest makes it the perfect hideout. Ryuji makes the call on the spot, telling Thor he'll take the house and thanking him for the deal like it's a win he'll never forget. Thor is totally caught off guard by how quick they move, but he shakes it off and says he'll sprint back to the guild to grab the papers. Ryuji got left behind to ask if they could sprint through the interior cleanup while everyone else waits. Thor flashes a grin and gives them the green light since they signed the contract. They've got full permission to go right ahead. When they stare at the property, Ryuji blurts out that since they signed so fast, Thor's cracking the door open, letting them grab the materials outside for free. But Lene stares at that towering pile of logs and bluntly says, "Yeah, those look brutally heavy to haul." Ryuji yanks out a glowing gem and tells her right there that this is exactly where his Herculean strength magic stone kicks in. Lene's caught off guard, but Ryuji just grins and promises that with this stone, all that hard manual labor is about to become a total cakewalk. That totally hypes Lene up, and she tells him, "If you're going to do that, then leave every bit of the housework to me." She's absolutely glowing with pride, bragging that with her alchemy, whipping up brand new furniture or fixing the old stuff is basically effortless. Ryuji nods like the idea is perfect, tells her it's time to finally kick things off, and gets them moving toward the place. Lene bursts into a loud cheer, agreeing hard as they gear up to rip into the old building and turn it into their brand new home. And she jumps right into action, yanks out her staff, and lets her magic flare bright like a warning light. Inside the house, a glowing magic circle ignites on the floor, and right before their eyes, furniture starts popping into existence. Lene goes full throttle with alchemy, snapping shelves and tables into place, while Ryuji takes on the heavy hauling, and somehow, despite the brutal pace, they hammer out the entire interior in record time. They step back and stare in awe at their brand new workshop fully stocked with every piece of alchemy gear they need to kick things into motion. But the second Thor steps back in, he goes stone still. He blurts out an apology for making them wait, then snaps, "Wait, what did you do to this place?" The whole room gets flipped on its head from dusty junk into a top-tier lab, and Thor just can't stop staring. He tells them, "Seriously, this is insanely impressive. You pushed this far in such a short time." Lene just beams with pride, cheering because she truly gave it everything she had. "All right, let's get down to business." Thor yanks out the last stack of paperwork and demands they sign the contract if there's no trouble. Ryuji nods. "Okay, but then." Then Lee spots Thor lugging a mountain of extra luggage, and Ryuji leans in, squinting hard like, "Wait, are you hauling a whole pile of vegetables or what?" Thor gets weirdly awkward, brushes it off like it's just personal, then finally blurts that he's probably the hypocrite all along. Thor just threw hypocrisy back at him, and Lene looked completely stunned, like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. But before he can get the words out, she spots something slithering through the bushes outside the workshop. She suddenly spots two elf girls tucked among the trees and blurts out whether they really are elves. Thor strides right up to them grinning, saying he finally tracked them down and hauled over even more vegetables for the day. The older girl brightens instantly and blurts, "Big brother Thor," grabbing his kindness with gratitude, then turns to the little one and urges, "Now go on, say something." Lena, the younger girl, flashes him a massive grin and chirps out a bright, "Thank you." Lene can't stop gushing. These kids are ridiculously adorable, and she whips around to Thor like, "Okay, who are they really?" Thor snaps back like, "Wait my manners," and immediately apologizes, saying he really needs to introduce the kids to Ryuji and bow correctly. He tells them the sisters are literally right next door, and they've been surviving with zero parents to help, and to make it worse, their farm sits on garbage soil, so they can't grow a single thing to eat. Lene listens with a heavy heart as Thor spits the truth. Those girls are just clawing for survival, doing whatever it takes to get by. Thor thrusts the kids' rough hands into view and snaps, "They try to take what they can, but it never lasts," then points at himself like, "So I've been feeding them with my own food just to keep them alive." Lene locks eyes on the girl's small calloused hands and whispers Ryuji's name like it hurts, because he can see how badly they've been through it. Ryuji stares out at the dead land and realizes those soils are even worse than he feared, so he goes silent for a beat as As he stares at the sisters huddled together in the dusty dirt of their empty farm, something in him snaps like that sight hits straight in the chest. He snaps into determination and declares they're doing it. Lene's caught off guard, staring at the sudden fire in his eyes as Ryuji bursts out with his plan to forge a brand new field using his enchantment magic, swearing that the power he wields has limitless possibilities. Clutching that glowing stone, he swears they'll cast enchantment magic and carve out a real proper field for the girls. Thor's totally stunned. He blurts out, "Ryuji, what are you even saying?" Because enchantment for farming sounds completely impossible to him. Little Lena's just as lost. She blurts out that a field is right there in front of them, so it leaves, leaving the whole crew gawking at Ryuji like he snapped, while he just stood there completely calm, ready to dive in and start working. Ryuji stares across the dead, dry field, then snaps his plan in a new direction because he clocks how intense that sounded, then quickly asks, "Can I cast a spell to help these vegetables grow better?" Lana asks, "Is it really magic?" And little Lena's face lights up as she blurts that healthy vegetables are such a great idea. Ryuji nods, snaps into action, and strides straight into the middle of the patch as he heads out while he scans the area, finds the perfect spot, and asks the group if where he's standing is good. He wastes zero time, then stomps an enchanted stone straight into the dry dirt like he means business. With a smug grin, Ryuji says, "That's got to be enough." But Thor just stares utterly lost and asks if burying a rock is really all it takes. Ryuji tells them the magic stone is packed with a specific enchantment, but the real shock won't hit until tomorrow morning. Then he calls both sisters over to help him slam the ritual to the finish. But Lana can't stop feeling totally lost about what they're actually supposed to do. Lene flashes a grin and tells the girls the secret spell is nothing more than saying, "Get well soon," to the field. Lena's totally hyped. She bursts into a loud shout while Lana grins, loving every second of watching her little sister go all in. And the two of them scream into the field as one, urging the crops to perk up just like Lene told them. Back at the old party, someone's losing it, screaming at Guy and Sean like they just stole their last chance. And it's getting louder by the second. Manori storms right into Guy's space and growls that he better explain exactly what went down with Ryuji earlier that day. She's livid, screaming that if Ryuji had truly been with them, they never would have been pushed to the brink or had to sprint away in panic. He just shoots her a glaring look, brushes her off like she's nothing, and flat out lies saying Ryuji just walked off on his own. Suzu snapped at him straight to his face, calling him a liar because there's no way Ryuji would ever just leave her and the whole team behind. But Guy tries to dodge the drama by pushing retreat first. But Minority snaps and whips on Sean, barking for him to say something. Sean's stomach drops, his body suddenly feels twice as heavy, and he panics hard when he realizes exactly how brutal the damage is without Ryuji's buffs. The Minority glares and gets straight to it, snapping, "So you're failing because you don't have the magic stone of sublimation anymore." Guy suddenly realizes just how much he depended on Ruga's help, and now he feels utterly exposed. Right as everything starts to fall apart on. Minori goes off on him, saying he didn't need a reason, he just wanted to boot out a miser because he hated him. She's trying to split the loot, and then she hits him with the accusation she claims he just cooked up an excuse to exile Ryuji, and the way she even says exile floors him so hard he can barely speak. So Sean panics and lies through his teeth. He insists Marie was the real money grabber who bullied Guy into handing it over. Marie snaps completely, screaming at Sean as he tries to pin the whole mess on her while Suzu fights her way through the chaos. She grabs Minori and shouts that they have to move before monsters come crashing in. Minori fires back, saying she knows exactly what to do, and she plants her feet right there, refusing to back down before. With a bombshell dropped, she and Suzu bolt from the party right then, right now. Suzu the Minority blurts that it's time, and the two of them just stride off straight up, abandoning the rest of the group behind them. Marie looks at Guy, totally lost, and asks what's going on, then he snaps at her, telling her to shut up and get out of his way. Guy is absolutely fuming, muttering sharp curses under his breath as he realizes his party is crumbling apart. Back at the guild, Manori and Suzu burst through the doors and rush up to the guildmaster to report their home. Imin eyes them up and down with his arms locked across his chest, and then he mutters that it's crazy rare to see the two of them looking this wrecked. Minority lays it out that Guy and the others completely botched everything, so they had no choice but to bail on the mission. Imin drags those fools into the spotlight, for underestimating Ryuji's enchantment magic. Then Minori freezes, stunned that he already knew about it So Emin just shrugs it off and fires back, asking where the rest of the guys are hiding out. Suzu snaps that she left the rest behind in the dungeon, and she makes it crystal clear she and the others are officially finished with that party for good. Eamon says it all clicks perfectly, then he reaches for a letter and thrusts the thing into their hands, yelling that the two girls have to read it right now. Minori grabs the note, and her face lights up in total shock, because she realizes the message is actually from Ryuji. Emin blurts that he's been clinging to that letter ever since they left town because he just couldn't bring himself to hand it over while Guy was standing right there, so Suzu reads that Ryuji is waiting for them in Salzstadt, whips around to her friend and blurts out, "So what's the plan?" And Minori doesn't even pause. She grins and declares, with zero doubt, that she's obviously going to find him. The next morning, the sun crept over the quiet workshop as everything's set up. Ryuji wakes up, stretches like he finally scored real rest, then a noise snaps him right back to reality. He hears Lana yelling, "Come outside right now," and his stomach drops, wondering what went terribly wrong, so he bursts out to Lene, who's yelling and pointing, begging him to go look at the field. Lene staggers out after him, barely awake, thinking, why is everyone freaking out this early? Lene keeps shoving them forward, blurting to both of them to hurry up and check this out right as everything leads into the next part. As the entire crew stood there in the field, frozen in total shock at the massive crops that had shot up overnight, Ryuji finally admits he never expected his work to hit this hard, as the kids keep shouting nonstop about how insanely cool everything is, and Lene leans in, telling Ryuji that his magic is straight up incredible, while Lana just stares, shocked that all of this can happen in a single night, and then Ryuji. So Ryuji tells him, "Yesterday I buried a pure mana stone when I enchanted, just to push the crops to grow faster." Lene leans in and asks if he's talking about the god of fertility, then presses him hard, demanding to know if he's seriously never touched a stone like that before. But Ryuji shrugs and calls adventurers pure drifters who never stay put, and Lene can't argue he's got a point. Lene just stands there, and then her stomach growls so loud it gives her hunger away instantly. Lene snaps it into place and says, "We're already out here, so let's start cooking breakfast for everyone." So she sends Lana and Lene to go grab the freshest vegetables, and the moment they hear it, they're thrilled to jump in and help. Ryuji declares that the harvest is officially go time, and Lene screams in pure hype as they all dive into the work. The sisters grin as they haul crates piled high with fresh, giant vegetables. Everyone drops into their seats for a massive feast of fresh greens, and the sisters can't wait to dig in. The food vanished in a flash. No one even bothered to leave a single scrap on those plates. Lana flops back and groans that she's totally stuffed, while Lene beams because she finally got to fill her stomach. Leanne leans in with a warm grin, asking if everyone loved the meal, and Ryuji flashes a pretty satisfied smile at how everything played out, but he snaps his attention to Thor and admits that sure, they finally got food, yet nothing feels fully okay. Ryuji tells the girls, "I went out to the fields earlier, and the soil looked even worse than yesterday." He points to the pyro magic stone he once used to turbocharge the harvest, then explains how that stone drains the land so hard it sucks up every last drop of water and nutrients until the ground turns dead and lifeless. And Lene catches it. This is her moment, so she steps forward and asks straight up if it's finally her turn to help. Ryuji asks if she can come up with something to fix the soil, and the second she says she can hunt the ingredients in the forest, he pushes her forward, go for it. Ryuji squints, totally thrown off, and blurts out what they mean, but Lene just grins wide, telling everyone, "Hand it to me, and Ryuji, leave it to us, and it'll all work out fine." Ryuji tells Lana and Lene he's handing them those lucky stones, then adds that Lene's the one who's going to be in charge of getting the soil all fixed up. The girls freeze in shock. Lana whips around, stares at him, and demands, "Are you really sure you want to hand those stones over?" Ryuji insists he's certain, then hits them with a deal he'll make them a favor if they let Lene have a slice of their field. He tells her this since she's an alchemist making medicine. She needs a perfect place to grow every single plant she'll use for her work. Lana tells them she's cool with using the field, but then she slips in the truth this could blow up into a massive problem. So Ryuji scoots closer and presses her for the real reason what's been haunting her about this idea. Lana says the wild boars keep tearing through the area, and she's terrified that her part of the field is just next on their hit list. Ryuji smirks and tells her, "I get it. then promises it's going to be a breeze to fix. Ryuji yanks a crystal from his hand, then smirks. There's just enough soil tucked in the corner of the field to make his move work. So he raises the mud core magic stone, then it bursts into a blazing, intense glow until a hulking golem of thick mud and packed earth heaves itself back together right in the middle of the field. Ryuji thrusts a finger at the creature, declares it a spriggan, and orders it to smash any wild beast that dare mess with the people or the crops. The magic stone is locked dead center on the golem's back, glowing in place as it stands poised to unleash its power, and Lene stares at that massive monster and goes, "Are you telling me you can just crank out golems with enchantment magic like it's no big deal?" Ryuji shrugs and says, alchemists churn out golems and all kinds of monsters all the time, so to him it's no big deal yet. But Lene looks completely crushed and blurts that they definitely don't make them that easy anymore, like her skills just got exposed as totally useless. Ryuji snaps back to the group and tells Thor they've got to fix the field's boar problem for good leaving. Thor stood frozen in total shock, stunned that it all happened way faster than he ever imagined. Lene flashes Thor a warm smile and tells him straight up everything he's done for those two sisters so far actually matters. And she promises she'll be there for him from here on out, urging him to quit beating himself up and swearing his kindness is hypocrisy because she truly believes. Thinks what he's done is the kind of thing he should be insanely proud of. And Thor's shoulders sag with relief as her words hit he's moved, and all he can do is thank her for understanding. Ryuji cuts right to the farm's crunch can the Merchant Guild handle harvesting and sales once we leave Lana and Lena enough food. So Thor nods right away and swears it's all handled, no stress, no money worries, because the girls won't have to think about a single cent ever again. Ryuji grins and tells the girls it's awesome that they finally get to eat to their heart's content every day, but they look totally overwhelmed and press him. Are you really sure you should be doing this much for us? Ryuji gently pats one on the head, then tells them not to stress because in the end, people are meant to help each other out. And he drops the bombshell he used to be in the exact same situation, just like them, back then. Grinning as he remembers how, back then, he got more than his share of help from others too. The two sisters can't stop beaming bright smiles blazing as they both thank Ryuji for everything he's done. And Ryuji leans over, eyes scanning the area because the fieldwork is finally done. So now it's time to figure out what. Lene cuts in and tells them to drop the drama and get back to his business because he's already burned way too much time helping them out. So Ryuji hits pause for a split second, then whips around to Thor and demands advice. He leans in and asks, dead serious, whether those abandoned mines nearby are truly banned to the public, and Thor's eyes widen with surprise and he tells him anyone can come and go whenever they want. Even after he warned Ryuji that the whole place was abandoned once the magic stone production dried up, he pretty much made it clear he won't find a thing worth taking. As they talk, Lene's mind whirls back to the day they formed that party, and he finally clocks it Ryuji's been shouldering the whole burden the entire time. So she digs in even harder, determined to finally become the kind of person he can count on starting right now. The crew sets out for the burn mine, perched up high on the mountain like a secret that's waiting to explode. Lene suddenly slips on the rocks, shoots out a sharp shout, and scrambles to stay upright. She'd promised herself she'd do everything she could, but this trail is already proving way tougher than she'd ever guessed she'd be. She bargains her way out, then blurts at Ryuji, screaming how a normal trip just crumbled into this disaster, while he snarls at her to keep running and asks, half panicked, if these wild accidents are always part of the job when. They trekked along the mountain, and the burned mine range loomed with towering snow-white peaks, shrinking the cliffside path beneath their feet to something almost laughably small. Sketchy Ryuji snaps at her to watch her step as the ground starts splitting under their feet, and Lene lets out a shaky breath, scrambling to find any solid ground she can. Ground to stand on, Ryuji whips his gaze back to her, his face tight with worry, scanning her like, are you really okay? Because he finally spills the truth he's been on edge for ages, and he confesses he's seriously terrified she'll slip and wipe herself out on. These rocks. Lene flashes him a nervous smile and swears she's okay. Somehow she stayed upright so far without going down even. Inside, she's completely unraveling. She tells herself to keep moving, but she's drowning in tears because this adventure has gone way off the rails from what she imagined. She glares straight ahead, trying to stay locked in, but something keeps gnawing at her mind. Ever since they ditched the main road, the closer they get to the mine, the thicker the air feels like the quiet mountain path is slowly turning into something darker. The mountain path crumbles underfoot, and with every step it feels like the danger keeps climbing, like it's coming for them next, because the ground is utterly wrecked, Ryuji points out. The earthquake wasn't just scary, it was strong enough to smash the harbor. So the mountain's in rough shape, Len says. Landslides are probably slamming shut the road in the worst areas. But there's still something gnawing at her. She even admits it might be rude to ask, yet she can't stop herself. Why is Ryuji headed to a place like this? She reminds him that both Anne and Thor warned him the mine would be totally abandoned and that it's deadly, so now this whole trip feels like a massive gamble with nothing to show for it. Ryuji locks eyes with her and declares, "I'm going, I'll bet on even the tiniest chance," and it leaves. He's left absolutely stunned because he knows the odds are brutal. They might roll back empty-handed, just like she warned, and he's still. But he's already made his choice, he tells her. We prepared for every risk, so yeah, this trip is worth it, even if it's dangerous. Lene pauses for a split second. Then it clicks. He's right. And so, standing before the mine's dark entrance, she steels herself. This mission is her chance to be useful, and she's going to pour every last ounce of effort into it. Inside the mine, it looked exactly like they feared, jagged rocks and debris sprawled everywhere, like the whole place had been torn apart. A goblin suddenly lunges out of the dark, eyes bulging and teeth bared like it had been waiting there for them. Lene totally snaps, erupts into a scream, and just stands there ice-cold, shocked by how instantly the monster burst onto the scene. But Ryuji doesn't even twitch. He stays ice-calm and barks for the adamantite magic stone to ignite. And as goblins burst from the shadows to swarm them, he rockets in front of Lene and throws himself between her and the attack. Ryuji's spark web fires off and traps the monsters before Lene can even get a single word out of her sentence. Ryuji freezes them in place with a burst of magic, pinning the goblins so they can't wriggle free. Then he goes for the next move, and he doesn't wait. He fires off a freeze bullet spell, blasting razor-sharp ice shards straight ahead, and the blow lands with terrifying force, smashing the goblins on the spot and wiping the whole area in one ruthless, flawless strike. Lene just locks eyes with him, still and silent, and when she finally speaks, she says the whole display was straight up amazing. Ryuji hauls Lene to her feet and blurts, "You okay?" She insists she's fine, but admits she got totally blindsided because he appeared so fast. Lene stares at the wreckage and fires a question, was that ice bullet really a low-tier spell? Or did something monstrously powerful just smash the world? Ryuji grins and tells her it's all thanks to the staff he's carrying, so Lene can't stand it. She gets curious and blurts out, "Wait, is this some kind of wild ancient relic or what?" But Ryuji shoots that down. He doesn't do anything like that. He pours sage into the gem on his staff to crank his magic power sky high. He spots the gem on Lene's staff and blurts out, "Want me to enchant yours too?" And Lene practically snaps it up on the spot. Lena nods in agreement, but Ryuji snaps, "Let's choose the real enchantments later because these picks pretty much lock in our future." They push deeper until the cave tunnel suddenly forks into two separate paths right there and right now. Lene stares at the map, points him straight ahead and says, "It goes right," but then flashes a grin head left, and there's an open area waiting for them. Ryuji freezes for a heartbeat, gripping the moment as he decides which way they should charge next. Lene nods, says she'll take a look, then swings her staff and unleashes a detection spell to reveal what's coming next. She scans the results, then snaps to Ryuji. "Look, there's a swarm of goblins sitting right to our left, just waiting to jump us." Ryuji pauses just long enough to register the news, then snaps into action and starts forging a plan. So he whips his gaze to the dark tunnel, and sure enough, the goblin pack is crouched there headed left. While they're out here exploring, Ryuji fires off the idea, wipe out the goblins right now, then swing back and report the kills to the guild later. Lene's all in. She tells them to move right now, and she cranks up her magic as they plunge deeper into the cave. Eventually, they slam into a wall, and Lene snaps his finger at the map, proving this spot is a dead end. But she keeps firing off check-ins to Ryuji, demanding to know if he turned up anything, and he shoots back that there's nothing worth talking about. Ryuji's standing there looking totally wrecked, staring at that spot and thinking, I can't believe this turned out to be a complete bust. He was really banking on his detection magic to finally sniff something out again, Even with those awful low yields lately, yeah. Even if it wasn't a brand new ore vein. Ryuji stares at the wall, second guesses his shot, and that doubt hits Lene like a sucker punch, leaving her totally off guard, and he leans in to ask what's wrong, only for her to suddenly shout his name and point at. She charged straight for a thin crack in the cave wall, where a slice of light was oozing through from the other side. Ryuji locks eyes on the light, stunned out of his mind, realizing they might have just stumbled on something absolutely massive. But he's terrified that bursting through could collapse the whole building, and Lene steps in, telling him to back off and let her take it from here. She shuts her eyes tight, summons the spirits of the earth with a fierce cry, and shoves all her mana into a blazing spell. And the ground starts to thunder as the rock face splits open, ripping wide for them. Ryuji tells her she nailed it, and Lene grins that she only loosened the soil just enough to let that light break through. Rin leans into the brand new opening and blurts, "Ryuji, is it really what it looks like?" And Ryuji just nods without a word. Turns out, they stumbled on a hidden path that definitely wasn't here when that mine was still being worked. Ryuji leans in and guesses a massive earthquake must have torn open this new path, one that none of their maps even mention. Lene scrapes at the wall's soft clay and points to it like hard proof that he's right. He tells her she crushed it, and she can't help but giggle while the two of them shoulder up and march deeper into the pitch-black cavern together. Lene gushes that this new path feels unreal, and Ryuji nods like, "Yeah, that's exactly it. Because this tunnel hits like nothing they've faced yet, nothing like the ones they've walked through so far. Glowing ores are scattered everywhere, lighting the whole place up like a hidden treasure's just waiting to be found. So Ryuji can't shake the feeling that a massive, undiscovered treasure deposit is just waiting for them deeper in. Lene admits she's starting to get nervous about what they're about to uncover, but Ryuji jokes that it'd be hilarious if they found nothing. But Lene won't budge. She's dead set on returning with real good news for the guild. Lene blurts out a sharp cry and throws her hands over her eyes as they step deeper into the cave, because this section is way brighter than the rest. Turns out the whole cavern is stuffed with glowing crystals, and the entire place lights up like a living firework. Ryuji just stands there completely stunned at how massive it all is. So Lene fires off the question, did he really know the worth the risk find would turn out this massive? Ryuji finally admits he never, not once, thought results like this were even possible. And suddenly it hits him. The hall is massive, bigger than he ever imagined, and for a wild moment, he even thinks the merchant guild might toss him a bonus. Lene just stands there, gaping at it all, whispering, "It's so beautiful." Ryuji drops to his knees, leaning in close to study every last deposit on the floor. And the moment he lays eyes on it, he knows this ore is top tier, no doubt. This vein's scale is so massive that the moment word spreads the area's been rediscovered, the entire city is going to feel the shock. Looks like the city's about to flip on a dime. Salzstadt's magic stone supply might finally restart, and everything's about to change. Lene spots something new, blurts it out to Ryuji, and points out that the cave path doesn't end, it keeps plunging deeper. Ryuji glances over, and sure enough, she's right. Then it hits them both just how massive this place really is. Lene snaps a glance at him and asks, "Do we keep moving ahead to see what else we can uncover?" But Ryuji figures they have already grabbed enough for today, so he tells her to stop right now, because the danger of a cave-in is skyrocketing. Lene nods and says, "Yeah, let's head back now." And then she grins, hinting they should keep their eyes out for more spots like this as they go. Ryuji starts to say it sounds like a great idea. Then something slams into his words mid-sentence. He snatches Lene's arm and screams her name, and in the next second she's completely blindsided as he yanks her back out of danger. A massive boulder crashes through the wall, but Ryuji yanks Lene away at the last second. Lene trembles in place, trying to make sense of it all, as she finally realizes a giant boulder just about crushed them. Ryuji whips around instantly, scans Lene for injuries, and asks if she's really okay. He replays the moment he shoved an adamant magic stone into her hands earlier as a backup, and now it's crystal clear that when a giant boulder comes crashing in with that kind of force, even a stone harder than a diamond basically can't do a thing. Normally, Lene would have caught it coming, but Ryuji can't shake it. Those strange echoes in her head make her wonder if the sound is actually farther away. He pauses mid-worry for a breath, because right now this is bigger than any noise could ever be. A giant foot stomps into view, dripping pure hostility, no doubt in my mind. That rock was thrown on purpose to wipe them out. Lene tilts her head and spots this massive muscular chest practically inches from her face, and she's so stunned she can't even get a single word out. Ryuji glares at the thing and snaps, telling it it's finally shown itself. A hulking, ripped goblin looms over them, snarling like it's about to smash anything in its way. Ryuji figures it's gotta be the goblin hero, but Lene just freezes and demands to know if this guy runs the whole pack. Ryuji snaps his head toward Lene and demands her staff right this second, and that hits her so hard she's instantly thrown off, scrambling to figure out what in the world he's up to. She shoots back, "Are you really serious about fighting that thing?" warning him their enemy is likely a rank 2 monster, or even worse. Ryuji tells her, "I already know," then shuts it down. He's leaving, and he's handing every last drop of the support magic over to her. Staring the monster down, he instantly clocked it. This wasn't one of the usual things they'd ever run into. Ryuji yanks out his daggers and snaps that they can't just sit there and stay quiet because that monster won't let them walk out without a fight. He sinks into a low stance and snaps it into Lene again this time. He makes it clear the beast's support is on her. Has zero plans to let them leave this encounter alive and whole. Out of the shadows, a swarm of smaller goblins burst forward, charging in to back up their leader, and then Lene starts blasting them with magic, but she snaps and grits her teeth because too many of them keep pouring in. Ryuji blurts out that he's sorry, but she has to keep fending them off until they can take on the big guy, while Lene snaps that they're stuck repeating the exact same fight over and over. Lene stares as more enemies crash in because he realizes the high-rank monsters usually come with minions, but this time it's spiraling out of control. Out of hand, Ryuji can tell just by looking that this isn't a normal boss. Whatever's behind this is way stronger. And it turns the fight into a full-blown nightmare. He keeps stabbing it with his extra sharp enchanted dagger, but not even a single scratch shows up. He considers blasting the whole place with a magic stone, then snaps back because that plan would trigger a cave-in and wipe out them both. Sure, Ryuji's team has wiped out a few of the smaller goblins, but he can't shake the feeling they're just bleeding out in a losing fight at this pace. Suddenly, the monster blasts out a massive surge of energy, and it slams into him before he can even react. Staring at the raw power pouring off that beast, it's obvious his diamond enchantment can't survive an attack like that. So he snaps into focus and refuses to let this fight drag on. He just needs one split second, just long enough to pin the monster's movements in place. He stares at the rock in his hand, and the moment his magic ramps up, it starts to split under the pressure, which means he has to move right now. He lunges forward and whips everything into a full-throttle, whirlwind enchantment, trying to slam the finish before it's too late. The distraction slams into the monster, and it erupts into a brutal roar of pain. Ryuji stares at the opening he just built, muttering that this should buy them some time. He shouts for Lene to grab her chance right this second, and she shoots back, "I've got it." Lene clenches her will, calling the mana in to swarm around her like a blade, then drives it forward to pierce the enemy. She cries out for her lightning spell, and a brutal wave of white light detonates and fills the whole room. Ryuji stared at the smoke and knew that, with all those goblins closing in, their hit had to be the finish. But when the dust finally settles, the monster's still standing, wearing that unsettling grin like it owns the place. Lene is totally stunned. She can barely wrap her head around it. Her strongest attack hit nothing and didn't leave a single scratch. Ryuji leans in for a closer look, and then it hits him that necklace isn't just decoration. It's packed with magic resistance, which makes him realize magic is useless here, and that's exactly why his dagger enchantment bombed earlier. Ryuji admits he's screwed too. He was counting on that potion if his magic crumbled, but when Lene tells him the truth, she only has poisons and explosives left, so Ryuji spirals over the fact he should have grabbed a freezing potion. If only he'd known it would turn out like this, and Lene fires back, asking whether a single potion could really freeze it solid. Ryuji snaps to it. There's one last move they can still gamble on, especially when he spots a dust cloud way back and feels in his bones that if Lene fires off her soil-loosening magic to trap the monster in place, we can freeze its movement and sprint straight past it to dive deeper into the room. Lene's like, "I've got this," but then she shoots, "Wait, where are we even going?" And you can see her panic when she imagines them slamming into some dead end. Ryuji tells her, "We're fine," even as the massive monster looms over them, primed to smash down. He leans in and tells her, "Trust me." hits her with a steady look, and reminds her they're in this together, no one left behind. Lene gulps in a breath, locks eyes with him, and says she's throwing all her trust into his hands. Then she summons the earth spirits and funnels all her power into the ground, yanking it loose right under the goblin's feet. He lured the colossal monster into a muddy snare that slammed shut, pinning it in place and stealing every chance to move. Ryuji flashes a confident smirk as he braces to strike, while Lene throws everything she's got into her next move. He hurls a tiny object straight at the massive monster while it's still trapped in the mud. Ryuji roars at Lene to move, and before she can even react, he yanks her without warning, leaving her stunned. Lene blurts his name in pure confusion, but Ryuji barrels forward without slowing, shouting that they've got to run right now. Then a huge blast of ice detonates, and the monster screeches that it's going to freeze to death as the cold crashes in and takes everything over. Lene finally eases off, slows to a stop, and lets out a long, shaking sigh like the danger is finally gone for good. As he steps out into the fresh air, Ren realizes there's a second entrance right there, and Ryuji just grins like, "Yeah, I knew it." He tells them he felt a cold breeze slip through the cave earlier, and he just knew his hunch had to be right. But Lene's still buzzing with curiosity. He grills him about how they slipped out and what that magic stone he just hurled was really made of. Ryuji tells her it was a frigid magic stone, reminding her that it was one of the items he'd shown her on their way to Salzstadt. Ryuji flaunts the dark stones and blurts that with one sharp blast of cold, they can freeze anything standing nearby. But Lene is totally thrown off. She figured magic couldn't touch goblin heroes, thanks to those necklaces. Ryuji leans in and tells her she's probably just getting it wrong, because that's how enchantment really works, and it's about to get worse. It hits her like a punch, and he breaks it down. Yeah, enchantment counts as magic, but it's really just nature's laws wearing a spell disguise. Unlike normal magic that's born inside you, this kind is more like a technique yanking power straight out of the world. Lene realizes it practically screams alchemy, and Ryuji tells her, "Yep, you nailed it." He decides to head back in, but Lene frets that freezing cold is still clinging around, refusing to let go. So he yanks out a heatwave magic stone and figures the cold's already starting to lose its grip. He says once they verify the boss is dead, they'll rip the stone out and blast the air clean so they can. Just like that, he starts moving while Lene stands there, staring in total awe at how this guy somehow hauls around enough useful gear to look like a real-life alchemist. Ryuji scans the scene and realizes the enemies are frozen solid just like that, leaning in like, seriously, she didn't expect that tool to be this powerful. Ryuji drops to his knees and pitches an idea: go harvest the boss's magic cores, plus the cores from the other goblins, because those things are basically pure gold. After they wrap things up, he urges her to head back to the guild and finish the mind map like they promised. Then Lene grins and says she's ready. They keep trudging back toward town, and just when hope starts to fade, Lene finally shoves the guild doors open and shouts, "We're back!" Anne looks up from the counter and flashes them a warm welcome, greeting both Ryuji and Lene the moment they step inside. She tells them that she already knew they'd be heading for the burn mine, and then she fires off the question, "Did you actually strike it lucky out there?" Ryuji shoots her a smug smirk and blurts that everything went flawlessly, then rubs it in by saying they even uncovered a brand new vein of ore. Anne is completely blindsided by the news, but Lene doesn't even slow. She thrusts the finished map into view and starts laying it all out even. Ryuji yanks out a huge bag and tells the receptionist, "These are every magic core we managed to rip out of the mine." Anne's jaw hits the floor when she sees how massive the haul is. She blurts out, "Did we bump into hobgoblins? Because those cores are way bigger than normal." Ryuji adds, "This wasn't some ordinary run. There's a goblin hero down there, and he's making..." And then she completely freezes, just staring at them like, "Wait, what?" begging for clarification because she straight up can't believe what she just heard. So she rubs her head, then blurts, "Give me a second, I need a moment to process all of this." She starts rattling it all off. Yeah, they uncovered a fresh vein and crushed a goblin hero. Only now she's realizing she's not the only one hanging on every word, because in the hall, the other adventurers start whispering to each other, trying to figure out if they really just heard about the brand new discovery. The whole crowd erupts into buzzing chaos. People shove the ore aside to gawk at the goblin hero's magic core, and the question hits hard: did they really pull this off by themselves? The entire guild whips around to stare, And everyone loses their minds shouting that Ryuji and Lene are absolutely amazing for pulling it off. One guy yells that a brand new vein could finally kick the whole town back to life, and another one can't believe they actually wiped out those monsters. Ditching the moment, he walked them out together and let them drink in every bit of praise the crowd was throwing at them. Anne finally steadies herself, takes one sharp breath, and declares she's officially accepting the map and the bag of cores job complete. Anne tells them the items they brought are so rare they technically break the guild's usual rules, so the guild has to do. They need to comb through every detail before the payout can happen. Lene's totally cool with waiting, and Ryuji says the plan's perfect, but then he slams another problem on the table. If they're getting paid as a group, why haven't they even registered an official party name yet? Ryuji stares, totally shocked, then blurts out that he completely forgot because lately they've been running around non-stop, and it just slipped his mind. So he whips around to Lene and asks if she's got any ideas, and she throws a hand to her chin, thinking hard for a beat, then her. Her eyes flare with excitement, like she's just cracked the perfect idea. She blurts out a name and then breaks it down an ancient word that, in the old language, means artisans. Like that's what it seems to mean. Anne shoots the paperwork across the counter and lets everyone know the official procedures are finally done, no more delays. She's ready to take the win. Ryuji thanks her for everything, blurts out that he's sorry he made her day so messy, and he keeps going though, and just grins at them, brushes it off like nothing, and then before you even realize it, thanks them for the huge help they just gave the whole town. Anne points at the guild members and says, "Look, this might be exactly what Salzstadt needs to claw back its old energy." Lene grins and fires back, "I'm so happy to hear that." As soon as the room realizes what they just did, everyone starts treating the duo like they're the city's saviors. People are yelling from every corner that they're counting on them from here on out. Anne flashes them one last warm smile and tells them the guild is betting big on whatever they choose to do next. It's obvious the two from Altina already carved out a huge name for themselves, standing there like they own the place. Like they're finally ready to take on the world together as one real team. As soon as they step outside, Ryuji throws out the idea of calling it a night and straight up asks, "So what's the plan for tomorrow?" Then I lean in and tell him I've got to restock ingredients soon, like really soon, and Ryuji nods and says they'll hit the market first thing in the morning. But a sudden ear-splitting scream nearby cuts him off cold. A girl suddenly pops out of nowhere, jabs her finger straight at them, and screams that she finally found him. Ryuji doesn't even blink. He just strolls up, greets Manori like it's no big deal, and tells her she crushed it for making it through a whole long trip to track them down. Manori isn't buying it for a second. She immediately explodes, yelling that he just dropped a letter and disappeared without even a word to anyone. Ryuji demands where Suzu is. Did she stay with Manori? Manori snaps back that Suzu's got things to take care of and she'll meet up with them later. Manori snaps the clues into place and realizes Ryuji's letter wasn't about some mystery alchemist at all. It was Lene. Ryuji stares in shock because they know each other, so Lene spills that they actually teamed up on a quest back then. Lene points out how everything shifted the moment Marie slid into that top-tier guild, and Manori admits she'd had a bad feeling about the whole mess from the start. Manori tells her that it sounds like she went through hell, but Lene just shrugs it off and laughs like none of it ever mattered. She says she's doing amazing now because she finally locked in on a brand new goal, and it's all thanks to Ryuji stepping up to help her. Manori just stares at her, goes, "I get it," and catches the new energy crackling between them as she suddenly snaps back to a memory, one thing she meant to tell her brother earlier, and it won't let her go. She tells him, "The minute I hit town, I bumped into a few other people who've been hunting for you too." Right then, two adventurers burst onto the scene, and Manori instantly clocks them as the same guys who were ambushed back in the forest. Lady Cece steps up in front of everyone and kicks things off by apologizing for showing up out of nowhere. Ryuji tells her she's fine, but the truth is his curiosity is firing on full blast about what kind of business dragged her all the way out there. Diet calls out to her as Lady Cece to get her attention, and she instantly nods, confirming he's right. Staring at Ryuji and Lene, she blurts out an apology, begging them to forgive her for how rude she was and for not introducing herself the right way the other day. She drops a massive bombshell and she admits she's quietly Raffi's and von Beestein, the kingdom's first princess. The air turns ice cold when she admits she's there to ask for a personal favor, and it totally smashes their expectations. All right, next, the whole crew charges out to the fields and starts hauling in the materials they'll need for the job right before the real work begins. Ryuji drops her nickname Setsu and tells her she could have just stayed behind while they handled the manual work. She insists that as the client, she won't sit back and let everyone else do the heavy lifting. Then Lene yells that she just found something. A little girl lifts a giant basket packed with plants, practically vibrating with excitement about the massive score she just got. Ryuji tells Manori her haul is seriously impressive, then shoots her a warning, keep it quiet, because everything here is a secret meant for the princess. The girl nods and promises to stay silent, and when Ryuji and Lene lock eyes, they grin like they've just cracked the code. Then it's go time. The story snaps back into the workshop. Everything goes dead quiet around the library and the stairs. A steaming cup of tea gets placed on the table, and the host practically urges the guests to dig in and enjoy every sip. Setsu flashes a grateful smile, reminds everyone she's meant to stay incognito, and tells them to just chill. Then Ryuji calmly accepts her offer with perfect manners. Lene scribbles in her notes and addresses him as Lady Cece, while Ryuji leans in and asks if they can finally get into the nitty-gritty of her request. Deet lunges to jump in and explain everything to Ryuji, but Setsu slams the brakes and stops him in his tracks. She insists, since this is my personal request, I'm the one who tells them, and leaves Deet with no choice but to nod and agree. Her smile drops instantly, and she turns to the group with deadly serious eyes. I need to say something huge right now. She locks eyes with them and growls a warning. Not one word of what she's about to say leaves this room. Ryuji locks eyes with her, then leans in and says, I've got this. So he whips around to the girls and asks if they're good with it too, minor. He even mutters that he'll go all out, then Lene jumps in and agrees without hesitation. Cece shoots back that the public knows nothing yet until what happened a few days ago catches them off guard right before her. Ryuji presses her, you mean the king himself? And she doesn't hesitate, yeah, him. Her smile fades fast as she blurts out that her father's stuck in bed right now, crushed by this sickness. She says it all happened out of nowhere, he just suddenly collapsed from it, and that's the part that makes everything fall into place. Len leans in, clocks what's happening, and shoots, so this whole thing is just about making medicine, RUJ. I nods hard and goes, yeah, that's exactly it. Cece swears they even got a top doctor from the capital to examine him, but no matter what they tried, they still couldn't figure out what illness was eating him. That's when it hit her. She remembered the two of them, and she rushed over to grab their help. Ryuji takes it all in, then finally breaks, telling her he gets it now and understands exactly what they're up against. Ryuji throws his hand up to cut the chatter for a split second, and then he snaps at Tetsetsu because Lene feels like she doesn't deserve all this praise, so she pushes back hard. And the bigger reason, she claims she can't take the job until she understands the symptoms, so she blurts, I'm sorry. So she leans in and demands that Cece lay out every single detail of what's happening with the king. Cece stares into her tea, then begins replaying every twist and turn that's been hitting her. As Lene listened, the look on her face snapped into place like a switch flipped in her mind. Ryuji's face stays locked in seriousness, while Manori just stands there, utterly lost, like she can't even figure out what's going on in their heads. She finally asks if they figured it out, and Ryuji just lets out a quiet nod before. Or sprinting back to Cece to tell her the truth that her father isn't sick at all. Cece nearly rockets out of her seat, blurting, wait, what do you even mean by that? So Ryuji shuts it down fast. Everything she just laid out screams, curse, not a normal sickness. Ryuji tells her that if she'd taken her father to a priest or an adventurer, they would have sniffed out the truth right away. For a regular doctor, nailing something like this right on the first try is nearly impossible. Cece freezes in pure shock, struggling to breathe as the word curse crawls out of her mouth. She blurts out apologies for rushing them and squandering their time, then explains she has to head to the church. But Lene slams the brakes right there. Ryuji springs to his feet and tells Tetsu, if it's just a curse we're trying to break, my enchantment magic will handle it. Setsu just gapes at him, completely baffled. How in the world is enchantment magic even supposed to undo this curse? Ryuji stays stone calm and blurts that the curse someone slipped onto the king isn't even that strong, so if they've got a dispel magic stone, they can wipe it out in a snap. He admits he's got 0 stones on him right now, so he's stuck planting himself down and starting from scratch to craft a whole new batch. Sets him with a jumble of hope and worry, and he blurts out, so how long until we get all this done? Ryuji scans the local plants and grins, saying he can probably grab every ingredient he needs from the forest behind the house. So he asks Cece if she'll wait till tomorrow, and she goes silent, her hand gripping her dress tight as her emotions fight to break free. She meets his gaze, says she gets it, and then urges him to please go on with the plan. Soon the crew sets off to start gathering, and Ryuji shouts to Renetta, "How's it looking over there?" And she grins right back, whispering that she's got a seriously good feeling about this place too. She crouches and points out the board poop she spotted in the bushes, swearing it came from a slender one. Or Cece is completely stunned, blurting, "Renek, can you really spot a monster just like that?" Ryuji only laughs it off, like that's exactly what an elf's nose does, no big deal. Renee looks straight up disgusted and says she'd rather not smell it at all, if she can help it, because having a nose this sharp is a total double-edged sword. Cece can't help it. He's seized by curiosity and demands to know what kind of creature that slender boar really is. So Ryuji breaks it down. Yeah, they're huge, but they're skinny and they lurk in the dark most of the time. They're not usually a major threat, but you still can't drop your guard. Lana nods with the crew, warns that the boars could still be lurking nearby, and tells them to keep moving, eyes wide open. Ryuji stands by a cart packed with supplies, cranes his neck down the hall, and asks if they finally have enough. Nen nods with a grin and says, "This looks perfect," bragging that they grabbed so many extras they won't be scraping the barrel for ages. Diet spots some of the other things they've snagged and blurts out, "Wait, does that clay we grabbed earlier actually matter for anything?" And then he reveals it's a key ingredient in top-tier medicine, hitting him with the terrifying truth that this alchemy goes way deeper than he ever imagined. Renee cuts in like, "Yeah, it's awesome for alchemy, but even regular doctors swear by it because it knocks out a nasty stomach fast." The second Diet hears it, his mind snaps to attention thinking that it's the perfect cure for him. So he jumps in, saying the guy's always whining that his stomach hurts, so they might as well let him try it already. Diet reluctantly admits she's right, while Ryuji just stands there, stuck on one thought, how brutal Dietrich's life really is. Lana locks eyes with Ryuji and says he's something else, but when he asks if she's actually serious, he just sounds totally worn out. Lene suddenly slams the brakes on the group, and the whole crew looks shaken as she snaps, "Wait, hold on a second." Ryuji blurts out what's going on, and she tells him, "I can smell beasts and blood nearby." She jabs a finger toward the tall grass and blurts that whatever she's smelling is crawling out from deep inside those bushes. The crew spots a dead animal on the ground and someone blurts out, "Is this one of those skinny boars leaning?" Lene stares at the body and knows it's a carcass, yet the way it died feels wrong, like something's missing, like it doesn't add up. As they stare at the bruises and claw marks, someone blurts out, "It had to be a huge beast, probably a bear." Lana looks shaken at the thought of a bear hanging around. But Ryuji insists the whole situation is way weirder than she thinks. He stares at the body, then jabs a finger at it. This boar carcass is way too spotless for any real predator, explaining that if a bear had really killed it, it would have been chowed down on way more than what was left. Lana stares at him, the truth slamming into place, and blurts out, "Does that mean there's something else out there?" Lene nods and says, "If the predator hadn't been stuck chewing on its meal, everything would have turned out different, but..." Dietrich strides up, snaps his shield forward, and demands to know if a bear is really the monster they're up against. The girls are absolutely disgusted by what they're seeing, and Lana can't stop herself from shrinking back at the sight like even her nerves are screaming. Ryuji just stands there, staring because he can feel it. Things are about to explode into something big and deadly. Right there, standing over everyone like a nightmare, is a monster so huge it swallows the whole battlefield. Minori doesn't hang back for a second. She lunges into the chaos and whips her sword at the beast, but she's totally stunned. Her blade swings in, and it doesn't even scratch the surface, so she blurts out, "What kind of monster is this thing?" From the sidelines, Ryuji stared in disbelief, asking how Minori's strike could have missed completely. Minori knows that if this were just a normal wild beast, she'd have ripped its arm off in a single strike. She plants her feet beside Ryuji, refusing to budge, and now she's left staring at this monster, desperate to figure out what's really happening. Ryuji catches the beast up close, those glowing eyes blazing, that gem on its chest pulsing, then it all clicks, and he knows that. Ryuji realizes she's not dealing with some ordinary predator, so he jerks Lady Cecil to safety and charges in to protect her fast. Ryuji spots the huge shadow and pinpoints it as a chimera kuma, because that means things are about to go very, very wrong. A chimera is basically this wild mashup, like a bunch of different animals fused into one single body. And you know what's wild? Alchemists forge these things just to jack up their stats, then turn them into living weapons. Ryuji knows one thing for sure in any civilized country. These monsters are meant to be locked down tight under strict control. And he's left staring in disbelief, thinking, what kind of idiot would seriously just let something this deadly roam free in the woods? Lady Cecil refuses to hide. She swears she's not just going to stand there while everyone else protects her. So she swivels in close, asks if she can tag an attack with her, and Lene's like, say no more, totally ready. Lene starts charging her magic, begging the mana to pour in because she's about to blast straight through that bear. Lady Cecil doesn't hesitate. She yells for her flame arrow and blasts it straight into that bear's face. As Lene surges her lightning power, the two of them unleash their spells together right on the same beat. The magic snaps into place, the bear explodes in a massive roar, and Ryuji immediately thinks they just scored a direct hit. But the moment he clocks it, something feels wrong and he knows that still isn't enough. The chimera is still standing, smug and unbroken, because its magical defenses shrug off everything, so not a single one of their attacks landed a real hit. Ryuji freezes for a beat, scrambling to decide what move they should make next. Then Lene blurts his name, ripping his focus off the monster for just a second. She leans in and whispers, I've actually got an idea, but her voice wavers like she's not totally sure it'll work. So, Ryuji locks eyes with her and tells her to stop hesitating, go for it, and give it a try. Ryuji whips around to Dietrich and asks for a moment to cast an enchantment, and Dietrich just grins and tells him, leave it all to me. Lady Cecil steps in and snaps orders to Manori aiming for the monster's back legs to pin it down. Then Lene quickly pipes up, I'm ready. Ryuji wraps up his work, grins and says the sharpness enchantment is ready, then fires a look at the team and tells them he's counting on them to finish everything else. Manori charges straight into the chaos and yells to Dietrich that she's stepping in for the very next attack. And she screams and whips her blade straight down, carving into the chimera's legs. The monster gets blindsided, blurts out a weird, trembling roar, and the enchanted blade slices straight through, cutting deep, making the massive beast lurch, stumble, and stagger as it fought tooth and nail to stay upright. As soon as the opening hits, Ryuji blurts out to Ren, then hurls a special item into her hands for their plan. Lene snatches it cleanly, flashes Ryuji a fast thank you, then darts off to work, and she snaps her voice the second they're in her way, yelling for Manori and Dietrich to get out of it right now. She hurls her secret weapon, an explosive Molotov packed with a whirlwind, and it detonates, pinning the chimera inside a roaring wall-to-wall blaze. Dietrich and Lady Cece backed away, staring in stunned awe at the blast. Dietrich even blurted out, what in the world is that power? While Lady Cece looked completely shaken. Rudy's mind snaps back to that whirlwind explosion he pulled off before when he held back so everyone could stay safe, but this time, Lene tells them the spell on the one she just launched wasn't ordinary at all. It was custom built to blow up as huge as possible. Ryuji stared at the smoke, convinced that even if it didn't fully finish the monster off, that blast should have at least slammed it to a stop. So he yanks out a magic sealing stone, grins, and declares this next move is the finisher. Suddenly, a thick slime heaves up in front of the monster and snaps around its head, leaving the poor beast gagging and totally confused as it fights for breath. Lady Cece can't even blink. She stares in disbelief and demands, tell me that thing is a slime, right? And Lene tells her that Ryuji showed her one of those stones back then and how he warned it could trap monsters inside a slime just like that. Ryuji tells Lene it was a brilliant move because no monster, no matter how hard it can soak up physical hits or magic, can stand up to what comes next. Once they cover their nose and mouth, the massive beast is left totally defeated, sprawled on the ground. Ryuji stares at the magic core they just ripped free, and the second he does, he can't help but wonder what kind of monster that thing really was. Either some random alchemist stitched it together, or somebody scored a synthetic core and bolted it in. And he couldn't resist. He tested it on a bear to find out if it actually worked. Ryuji slams his fist down and tells the group they've got to report all of this to the guild. No excuses, and if he stops there, it only makes things worse. But once it hits him, he knows he has to lock in and craft that dispel stone. No time left to go take that trip. Leaving him groaning in the moment, Lene just cracks up at how totally stressed he looks. Lene asks, should I just go instead? Because she knows he's desperate to hammer that stone out fast. So basically, she points out that she has to drop off her transfer notice in Salzstadt anyway, then she can fetch the adamant and file the report. Ryuji leans in and apologizes for the hassle, then tells her it'd be a huge help for him. As Dietrich snaps his attention back to Lady Cece, he hammers out their next move. Ryuji grabs the moment and tells them to ditch the bear carcass for Manori to handle, then sprint back to the workshop. As soon as they're back at the house, he's ready to dive straight into crafting those magic stones. Ryuji spots Lene scanning every piece of gear, and Lene straight up tells him everything's locked in and the preparations are finally done. Ryuji nods, grins, and tells her they're good to go, then asks if she's ready to jump straight into it. Now it's finally time the alchemist and the enchanter are about to team up. He raises a huge stone and declares this is the time to prove they're real craftsmen, ready to show off their skills. The room goes dead silent as they brace themselves because tonight they're about to lay it all on the line. Ryuji double-checks the supplies, grins, and says they've got more than enough materials, so they'll be done by tonight. Night broke over them as he turned to Ronnie and finally blurted, it's official time to show them what we can really do. Lene tilts in, flashes him a huge grin, and practically declares, I'm ready. Thor cranes his neck at the rock in Ryuji's hand and demands to know if that's the real stone they use to forge magic stones, and Ryuji shuts it down by confirming this rough stuff is a null magic stone. He launches into the explanation and tells you, you've got to use a special knife to carve the blank stone out. Then you blast it with heat, and with the help of a catalyst, the whole thing surges with power. Then they have to grab a whetstone and grind it down until the rock's shape finally comes out perfect, before sealing it with one last polish to sharpen the edges and make that magic shine. Ryuji tells them that once you finish every last step, you end up with a magic stone so powerful it feels unreal. Thor leans in, catching every word Ryuji says. He's got it. He's following, but even after the cutting is over, he still can't shake one burning question, how the enchantment works once it's done. He keeps asking, do we even need the polishing stage? Shouldn't the stone be ready right after cutting and shaping? Ryuji tells him, if you skip polishing the stone at the very end, it'll never unlock its full potential. He swears every single step forges the stone's perfection, so they can't even think about cutting corners during the process. And it hits even harder for stones built to save lives like the Dispel magic stone he's grinding on right now. That's where an enchanter's true power finally comes out. No tricks, no hiding. He explains that artisans never stop driving themselves, always hunting for the next level, trying to cram as much raw power as possible into a single stone, until he finally slams the last pieces of prep into place and decides, yep, everything's ready to go. Next, he slams the catalyst plants and the cut stone onto a heat-resistant dish like it's showtime. And Thor that all he has to do is hit this spot with a little heat to kick the whole reaction off. The magic snaps into place, and the leaves start to shrivel as the stone guzzles the energy. Thor gapes in shock and blurts that the catalyst plant has already crumbled to dust. Ryuji stares at the stone and declares, we filled it with power, now we just cut it, shape it, and polish it until it's perfect. With that mess finally sorted, he whips his focus straight to Lene. He tells her he'll only cast the enchantment on the bottle at the very end, so he begs her to warn him the second the potion is finally done. Lene smiles back and says she gets it, then braces herself, ready to dive straight into her part of the job. Ryuji strides over to check her station, and when he asks what she's working on, Lene looks up from her tools and blurts that she's brewing a stamina recovery potion. She tells him, even if that magic stone smashes the king's curse, it won't cure the exhaustion and weakness that have been crushing him for ages. She decides real medicine is the only way to help him recover from all that brutal physical damage and get back on his feet, and Lady Cece spots the ingredients and blurts out that it looks like a brutal medicine brewed from almost grass. Ryuji spots the name right away and fires back, asking if this is the herb people swear by for supercharging nourishment and vitality. Lene nods like he's got it all figured out, then dives into her recipe, watching him grind the herb into powder, mix it with distilled water, and finally strain everything out, clean and ready. Lene breaks it down. She'll tweak that strained liquid with alchemy, and if she distills it at the perfect temperature, the stamina potion will be ready. Ryuji admits that since he's heard it's made from nothing but herbs, the whole thing suddenly feels a lot safer to him. Lady Cece jumps in to back her up, and she points out that people even toss those same herbs into tea sometimes. Ryuji then leans in and tells everyone, this next part is going to take a while for me and for Lene too, and asks if they can stick around and just wait with them. Lady Cece tells him to drop it completely, since they're the ones begging for the favor. But Ryuji grins and says he's straight up thrilled to watch a real master at work. As they finally reach their spots, Lady Cece whips her gaze to both of them. She tilted her head and said, half whispering, that she's really counting on them to pull this off. Ryuji and Lene lock eyes with her, flash a confident grin, and tell her, just hand it to us. Then the two of them dive right in. Ryuji starts shaping the magic stone on his machine with careful hands, while Lene watches her chemistry like it's about to blow. Both of them stay locked in Ryuji staring down the stone, while Lene keeps her brewing setup running perfectly, drop after drop, until the potion's just right. After what felt like forever, it's finally done. Everything is officially complete. Lene shoots a bright smile at Ryuji and tells him he crushed it today, then pauses like something big is about to hit. But she can't stop herself. She keeps pressing for updates, asking how the potions are doing, and Ryuji tells her they're basically finished. The only thing left now is for her to cast the enchantment onto the bottle. Ryuji nods and tells her, I've got it, then makes sure Lene hears it too. You crushed it. Great job. Lene brushes it off like nothing happened, and Ryuji just lets her know that actually makes her sound a whole lot safer. Ryuji whips around to the others and blurts out a thank you for their crazy patience, while Lady Cece's eyes go wide and Diet strides forward, demanding to know if the job is truly done. Ryuji lifted a tiny chest with a cocky grin, like, yep, it's as perfect. Lady Cece leans in for a closer look at the Dispel magic stone, and she blurts out, stunned, that it's absolutely gorgeous. Diet just stands there, grinning like he's proud of it, fully backing up the idea that this stone looks absolutely incredible. This time, the Dispel magic stone has been forged into a wild, intricate polyhedron with 58 blazing facets. Ryuji strides over and lays it out. Symmetry and optical magic are the whole reason. That design, the stone drinks in the light and glows like a dream. He says he crafted it in a shape that makes magic stones fire at their absolute best. Standing by the window, he insists that the stone's glow will burn through the Majesty's curse and cleanse it completely. No doubt about it. He finally ties it all together, then lays out the exact precautions so nobody uses it the wrong way. You tell them this stone is way easier to handle than they think, just pour in some magic power in. And just like that, it starts running, ladies watching. And I nod like, yeah, got it, I know exactly how it works. Ryuji grabs the medicine and says, trust me, take it by mouth and it'll do the job just fine. Lene blurts out that Ryuji's recovery enchantment supercharged the medicine, and that's why its effects hit even harder. She can personally swear this batch will hit harder than anything else they've been using. Lady Cece's eyes glass over with relief, and she keeps firing off thanks again and again over everyone who's helped her. As the sun drops, Lene snaps his gaze over the group and asks, voice low but steady, if they're cool with staying over again. He blurts out that the night's getting late, and there's no telling what those bandits might try next. Lady Cece thinks it over and finally nods she'll take him up on the offer, but the second they start settling in, someone screams, Ryuji, and Manori practically crumples against the doorframe, like she fought through hell just to make it there. Lene and the others are frozen in total disbelief, and Lene can barely even get the words out. The girl lurches into the room, then thrusts a crumpled paper toward him with a hand that won't stop trembling. Ryuji snatches it from her, brows furrowed, and blurts, is this some kind of letter? While Manori freezes, staring at the paper, wondering if the handwriting on it is really Suzu's. The note was a frantic mess, scratched words screaming, help me, so clear they could turn anyone's blood to ice. A horse-drawn carriage barrels down the road, blasting the ground with dust as the moment finally snaps into something dangerous. Minori's curled on the floor, shattered to pieces, sobbing that it's all her fault. She should have stayed and waited with Suzu instead of going with. Of leaving her behind, Lene shoots in to steady her, whispering that she's not at fault for how it all went down, but Ryuji just stares at them, his mind racing. Minori's been trapped in the same state since last night, and he can't stop thinking about it while. Then it hits him. The real problem goes back even farther, and he can't stop thinking about it. He's the one who chose to leave those two behind and strike out of the city in the first place. So, if anyone's to blame for this disaster, it's him. He's the one who should be getting roasted right now, because he's the reason this all went wrong. He stares at what's happening and realizes these three are insane, talented, and battle-tested, surviving one fight after another, so he's sure they'd be unstoppable. They're fine on their own, sure, but the moment he thinks, was I just too naive to expect this to stay smooth? That's when everything snaps right after that. Then it smashes into him. Minori's probably thinking the very same thing because she believes in their strength just as fiercely as he does. And that's why she finally decided it was fine for them to split up, because when you look at how things turned out, it's painfully clear that that letter spells total disaster. Whatever's happening has blown right past anything they were ready to face. Suzu's letter comes in and she's begging for forgiveness, so Ryuji just freezes and stares, because every single clue screams that things are way worse than they ever imagined. He glances at Minori, totally crushed, and instantly knows she's clocked the same threat, which is exactly why guilt is eating her alive. Since they have zero clue what's happening to Suzu, Ryuji snaps up and tells the crew they've got to move now, before it's too late. That letter came from a place called Bechmer, so Ryuji can't shake this hunch he's betting Suzu is still somewhere in that town. Ryuji suddenly feels terrible about how he acted earlier. Everything moves so fast that it hits him now. He was way too rude to Lady Cece. Lady Cece stays icy calm. She tells him that if it's an emergency, he shouldn't sweat it at all and should just go. She offers to grab them some horses to speed everything up, but Ryuji shuts it down. Neither of them knows how to ride, so they'll snatch the very first carriage they see in the morning. Lady Cece nods, slips her hand into her cloak, and tells him she gets it, then pushes him to take something with him before he leaves. Ryuji stares at the fancy document she shoves into his hands and blurts, "What is this?" She smiles and says it's a formal royal invitation, sealed with the real royal mark. She tells him, since we're heading to Bechmer anyway, we might as well swing by the royal capital of Lautinger on the way back home. Lady Cece tells them, as soon as we hit the capital, I'm throwing a proper formal event to officially thank Ryuji for everything, but then Lene bursts in and snatches Ruga's attention, stunning him so hard he doesn't see it coming. He's still lost in thoughts about the trip. He spots how terrified Lene looks and blurts, "What's wrong?" She freezes, then finally she opens her mouth and starts. But then she grins, shoves a wrap she just bought into Rugi's hands, and tells him it's for him. Then it hits him he's been so stressed, he completely forgot to eat. After snatching the food and shooting Minori an apology for disappearing, Ryuji watches as Lene swivels her attention to Minori, checking if she's okay. Minori's still curled up in the corner of the carriage, eyes down as she snaps, "I'm not hungry at all." Lene clenches her resolve and snaps that if she doesn't keep her strength up, she won't be able to move or fight when the situation finally turns deadly. Ryuji steps in close behind her and presses Minori, asking if she remembers what their old teacher used to tell them back then, because Master always hammered this into us: if you want to get something done, for real, you've got to fuel your body first. Eat right, sleep right, then go conquer. Minori finally cracks and admits it. Yeah, I get it. Then she takes a bite of the food, eyes sharp, bracing herself for whatever's coming next. Minori takes a bite, says the food tastes salty, and Ryuji's eyes snap to the fact that she's crying, so he questions her as she just sits there, gripping her meal like it hurts. The carriage rumbled through the woods, and then boom, they finally neared the border of the Kingdom of D. Ryuji admits this trip will take a while, and Lene leans out the back, staring ahead like, Beckhammer is still way, way far off. But then the driver suddenly screams and yanks the reins with all his strength, fighting to slam the horses into a full stop. The carriage grinds to a halt behind a packed crowd blocking the road, and everyone's staring around, whispering, yelling, and demanding to know what's going on and why they can't move. Turns out a massive landslide crashed down and jammed the mountain pass solid with giant boulders, shutting every wagon out for good. The travelers huddle and whisper that the western mountain just crumbled, and when the truth hits, they realize there's no way they're getting through. One guy starts griping that his business is urgent in D, and he demands to know if anyone can actually do something about the blockade. Lene blasts this as a major crisis and turns to Ryuji, asking if they're really going to get forced to march the rest of the way from here. Ryuji blurts that he'd rather she wouldn't have to do this, but Minori snaps back that they've got zero time to just sit and wait for the road to magically clear. Ryuji stares down a mountain of boulders, face set, and declares they're going to haul the entire pile. Lene's face pinches with confusion as he asks if Ryuji plans to haul them by hand, but Ryuji shuts him down. No way, not even with a magic stone. He starts second-guessing his skills, then decides to ditch his old approach and pull off the job with a completely different method. Ryuji strides toward the landslide and tells her, "Don't worry, I'll move these rocks and clear the way." Back in town, the party's home base looks dead quiet for a moment, but that peace doesn't last. A guy storms into the room, bellows for Suzu, and catches her mid-read, like he's furious she dares to just sit there with her book. He's completely pissed off, snapping that he wants to know right now where the hell Manori went. Suzu doesn't even lift her eyes from the page. She just shrugs it off and snaps, "I'm busy. I'm reading a grimoire right now." She snaps at him for barging into her room like that, but Guy steps right into her space and demands she answers the damn questions. Suzu tells Manori vanished yesterday, and even I have no clue where she went. Then snaps, "So just get lost now." Guy's face hardens the moment he snaps at Suzu like she's a little brat, demanding to know who the hell she thinks she is because it's obvious he's hit a breaking point. But Suzu doesn't fold. She draws a hard line, tells him, "This is my move," and laughs at him for calling himself a leader when he and his crew basically crashed her party and pushed right in. Then she snapped back, saying she's not finished yet, and starting to point out that Ryuji and Manori were the only ones holding it together, constantly scrubbing up his messes. And when she finally locks eyes with him and fires back that he's the one who needs a reality check for playing so high and mighty, because this is the last straw for Guy, who finally loses it and swings his arm hard, blasting the book straight out of her hands. Suzu's eyes go wide. As she finally understands what just happened, she blurts out that the book was actually borrowed. But before she can even fully react, he swings through with a brutal smash, nails her right across the face, and blood spills instantly. He's totally snapped. And he yanks her up by the collar, shoves her face close, snarls, "Little shit," and warns her not to get cocky with him. Then he cuts her off and leaves. He bolts out in a violent rage, leaving Suzu sprawled and groaning in agony, bruised, bloodied, and fighting just to keep up with the shock. Manori finally lunges in, screams at the guy to stop, and tells him he doesn't have to take it this far, like she can barely hold back the fear. She was terrified out of her mind, but Guy just snaps back that it's all that damn brat's fault. Then he cuts himself off mid-sentence. Refusing to cool off for even a second, he keeps demanding they take him straight to wherever Suzu and Manori are headed. He steps into her space and tells her, straight to her face, that he hasn't even accepted their resignation yet. Then Suzu starts to. He gritted his teeth through the pain, forced the words out, and told him leaving that party was his own call, his choice, and he can't stop them. She quickly tells him that she and Manori may already shoved their official paperwork into the guild. And that's when Guy starts giving off this sick, eerie, dark vibe because he just keeps repeating her words back to her, like he's savoring every syllable. He snaps his focus to Sean, and Sean looks completely lost, like he can't figure out where this roller coaster is headed. He barked an order to kick out the inn staff and snatch another room, then keep torturing them until they finally crack and spill everything they know. Sean just keeps telling them, bring them back here later. But the second he tries to follow time, he's totally lost. He can't even guess how long it's been. Suzu is stuck in dead silence inside a world of total darkness. Every door and window is bolted shut so tight, she can't even guess what's happening out there. And there she is, stuck with her hands tied, watching the panic snowball. Then her stomach lets out this loud growl, and suddenly she realizes with a jolt just how hungry she's getting as her memories come rushing back. He still clings to his master's old warning, eat right, sleep right, and yeah, it sounds simple, and she's already tearing herself apart for breaking it again. She got way too obsessed with her grimoires, forgot to take care of herself, and that's the real reason Guy's surprise strike even landed. She knew that if she'd been at full power, he'd never have caught her off guard. But right now her strength is draining by the second, and she forces herself to strike while she still has enough energy left. So she whips her gaze to the door, scanning for any watchers or anyone waiting on the other side. The whole place is deadly silent. She can't hear a single thing from the hallway, so that only means one thing. With the guards finally gone, This is her one shot at freedom, so she locks in, pours mana into her hands, and shouts for a spell that can copy her own dying body. Then boom, the imitation magic ignites, and the whole room floods with blinding light as the spell finally starts to form. Suzu knows those clones of hers are basically useless when something needs a delicate touch because they're just not built for that. And they can swing a letter just fine. She even slipped one off in secret without Guy or the rest of the party ever catching on. Now she's firing her clone off with one mission: get that message to Ryuji and Manori, no delays. The clone sprints down the hallway as Suzu hangs back in the darkness, her nerves screaming that this plan better actually work. She's staring at the truth like it's on a countdown. Everything hinges on whether her friends truly got that letter. So 10 days rolled by since the crew first tore out from South Street. Back at the guild, Emin stands shoulder to shoulder with Anne, grilling her to see if that rumor he heard is real or just a lie. Ryuji bursts into the room with Lene and the others, shouting that he has to ask Emin something right this second. Anna and the men are completely stunned because after all this time, he's right there, standing in front of them. But Ryuji won't waste a second. He cuts in, tells them they can catch up later, and fires back, "Do you have any idea where Suzu is?" Emin looks completely swamped with stress as soon as he hears Suzu, like the moment he realizes things are about to get dangerously heavy. He tells Ryuji it's crystal clear something went wrong with her, and Ryuji just freezes there, speechless. Then just as the crowd shifts, Ryuji spots Sean cowering in the masses, and his whole body freezes in shock. But then Sean clocks that he's been spotted, and panic detonates on the spot, because in his mind, this means he's in serious trouble right now. Ryuji shouts his name, and the second he sees how the guy's acting, he knows something's being covered up. So Emin steps in, snaps, "Ryuji, come with me right now," because he's just found a real lead on where they might be. He blurts that a fresh tip just hit their location, so the whole crew follows him down a quiet hallway while sharing the bombshell that someone had just seen Suzu and Sean slipping out of a room at the inn together. Emin makes it crystal clear if there's no proof, the guild usually stays out of adventure drama, But once the family steps in, the rules flip completely, and he looks like he's about to take it on himself. Emin says he snagged the full scoop from the reception desk on how this tip-off works, and he's dead sure Sean's tangled up in it because the second he saw how hard that guy panicked, it all clicked. Ryuji stares in, locked in, then snaps that if that's the truth, they've got to move, go see for themselves what's really going on. Leading the team, they push the whole crew deeper into the building until they finally slam to a stop at one exact spot. Eamon stops in front of that wooden door and swears he's sure Suzu's trapped in this room right inside while Ryuji. He immediately starts pounding the door, shouting Suzu's name, insisting it's him, but he just stands there, frozen in silence, because when he realizes the other side isn't answering, the door feels like it just swallowed the hope. One of his sisters comes sprinting down the hall with a key in hand, blurting out that she already talked everything through with the innkeeper so they could get inside. Then she wastes zero time, slipping the key into the lock and twisting until it clicks, and the door finally swings open. Ryuji slams the door wide and yells her name, yet the second he sees what's inside, everyone goes still, because it reveals. Suzu sat alone in the pitch-dark room, looking shattered like nothing could ever fix her. The girls scramble to Suzu's side and they start blurting questions like, "Are you okay?" While Lene finally leans in, exhales hard in relief, and tells everyone, "Don't panic, she's just asleep." Ryuji's sister yanks Suzu into a crushing hug, then breaks down in tears, sobbing that she's so sorry she left her alone like that. But Lene. The queen quickly confesses she's wiped out from everything, so she starts pouring in nutrients to get her strength back. Suddenly, the door bursts open and the guy roars at them, calling them bastards and demanding to know why they're barging into the room. Marie stands right behind him, frozen in shock when she sees Lene. The words die in her throat, and she can barely manage to say her name. Lene whips her head over her shoulder, and the shock hits harder than ever. Marie is standing in the doorway, staring right back, and then this dude glares at the whole group like he wants to explode, then whips around and demands Ryuji what the hell is he doing in his room before he snarls that he needs to get out. Ryuji stands there, shoulders slumped and eyes down, mumbling the guy's name under his breath like it tastes bad though it. That grin spreads across Guy's face as he yanks out his gear, plays the tough guy, and shoots What's with that look you've got on me, Ryuji? He clamps his hand around his sword, laughs in his face, and asks whether some cheap, third-rate enchanter like Ryuji really thinks he can win this. But Ryuji just glares down at Guy, basically saying, "You're still the kind of guy who sizes everyone up by rank alone like that's all that matters." He locks eyes with Guy, snarls that he's a fake second-rate, and rips into him for needing magic stones just to finish the job. Like he's nothing but a... Ryuji makes direct eye contact with the big guy and snaps, telling him to shut up like a dog. Right before things can turn violent, Guildmaster Yemen rockets between them and snaps, "That's enough." He shoots Guy a freezing look and tells him straight up, if he pulls another stunt like this, he'll face serious consequences. Yemen slams down a total bombshell, snapping at Guy, did he really forget Marie got demoted all the way to 3rd class? He starts sweating buckets, practically begs the Guildmaster to hold up, insists it wasn't his fault, and blames Ryuji for barging in and wrecking everything. Yemen won't hear another word. He fires back, demanding how Guy's going to explain Suzu's condition. Then Guy goes instantly silent. Ryuji stands there on the edge of breaking, and he snaps at Yaman not to stop him because Guy is way past talking now. Yemen huffs a long sigh, rubs his forehead, and realizes looking at Ryuji and Guy reason has officially left the room. So he pauses for one heartbeat, then snaps into a plan, turning to the two of them and asking what they think about trying a completely different way to end this. With Guy and Ryuji locked in a hate-filled standoff, the Guildmaster snaps at them both, take that tiny fight outside, and he seals it as a proper, official duel, then declares he'll show up, ready to witness the entire thing from start to finish. Meanwhile, Suzu finally groans and jolts awake, blinking through a fog so thick she can barely focus as she opens her eyes. Manori blurts her name, and the moment she relaxes, Lene and her clothes back up like, "So you're finally seeing what's happening around you, right, since?" Suzu stared up at them, totally lost, and when she finally spotted Manori, she blurted, "Wait, is that really Lene standing there?" Ren leans in and says, "Yeah," and Manori asks Suzu if she still remembers that job they all did together back then, and Suzu nods that she does. But she's completely turned around and blurts out, "Where are we even right now?" So Lene points her to the training grounds behind the guild. Manori fills her in on every last bit of the chaos and then drops the real bombshell. Thanks to the Guildmaster's plan, Ryuji and Guy are about to go to duel right now. Lene watches from the sidelines, convinced that if the guild lets them crush this mess in public, they can. She knows that if the promise is locked in during an official duel, even a guy like Guy can't wiggle out later, so nobody else can start drama when the dust settles, because she'll make sure it doesn't happen. So she's basically praying Ryuji wins, because if he does, she can finally make this nightmare end out there in the middle of the training grounds. Yemen steps between them and snaps that they've got to go over the fight's terms one last time, then he starts breaking everything down again. Says if Guy wins, Ryuji gets kicked out of the city and the girls don't get to leave the party, no matter what. But if Ryuji walks away on top, Guy has to cough up 500 gold for all the damage he caused, and he's getting kicked down 2 ranks, landing in 4th class. Yemen stares them both down and demands to know if they truly understand the rules of this match. They both snap into agreement right away, eyes locked, tension finally breaking the surface, and then Guy snaps, slams his shield up, and charges straight in, screaming at Ryuji to beg for his life while there's still a chance. Ryuji freezes in place, dark rage burning in his eyes as he leans in on Guy, calling him pathetic and laughing about the demotion he's about to take. Amin thrusts his hand up to silence the room, and finally it is showtime. The duel's starting signal blasts across the grounds, and even though Guy looks like he's about to tear someone apart, Ryuji just stays cool and snaps that he'll end this with his bare fists, so Amin lunges in one final burst, locking eyes with them to make sure they understand every single thing they're signing on for. The air turns heavy as the rules get shouted over and over, because if Guy wins, the girls stay with his party, and Ryuji is erased for good. But if Ryuji grabs it, Guy has to cough up 500 gold and take a brutal demotion that could torch his whole career. Eamon glares them both into silence, demanding to know if they're 100 locked in before they start throwing punches. He doesn't even blink, no mistake, not on his watch, as he digs in and gets ready to charge. Ryuji stays stone cold, calmly saying he agrees with everything, no panic, no fear, not even a twitch. Rage snaps the guy's mind as he erupts in screaming, roaring at Ryuji that if he's going to beg for mercy, He'd better do it right now, because Ryuji snaps his gaze back at Guy, wearing a dark, scary scowl, and tells him he's pathetic, then orders him to stop crying so hard about his new rank. The signal finally blares and the duel officially erupts as Guy barrels into the arena, shield up and sword cocked, ready to strike. He takes a massive swing, completely misses, and crashes onto the floor, yet Ryuji just stands there watching him like it's nothing, totally bored while. Guy totally loses it, blares at Ryuji, calls him a little brat, and orders him to stop running off like a coward. Ryuji just shrugs it off, casually says no, and points out the obvious because getting hit by a sword would actually hurt. Then he starts putting him down, snapping that Guy's moves are a total mess, and he should stop copying himself and learn from Manori instead. Guy is absolutely fuming at the insult, clicks his tongue, and snarls that he hates Ryuji with every fiber but the moment the stakes hit the air, the whole crowd explodes with buzzing excitement. Everyone's stunned because 500 gold coins are on the line. People are already whispering that this kind of cash is enough to live like a total king for an entire year. Guy snaps at Emin, roaring that there's no way he's actually got that kind of cash on him. Ryuji says he figured it out, then whips his gaze to the rest of the party and asks straight up if they've got the money to pay. Ryuji calls her out and warns her that Marie is probably lounging on a mountain of savings, and Marie starts freaking out on the spot, panics instantly, and tells him to wait. There's no way she's doing that. He snaps, slams his temper down on her, and tells her to shut up, then growls that if he wins, it's all fine, so she'd better just hand it over. Emin steps in, grabs the moment, and tells the guy to hold on, then calls him out and demands he borrow it the right way, with some real class, warning him that if he didn't, Emin wouldn't even let that money count as his for the bet. He straight up says, if Guy can't keep up with Ryuji's rules, then this whole deal's dead and my conditions are garbage too. Guy snaps to the truth that he's trapped, jolts his head up to his teammates, and begs bowing low for them to lend him the money. Sean just freezes in pure shock, but Marie finally caves and promises she'll do it. She makes sure he hears this win, or the cash walks away while the guy grumbles under his breath about how brutal this all is. He snaps back into a fighting stance, jaw clenched, swearing he'll never lose to a puny enchanter like Ryuji. Ryuji leans in, watching it unfold, smugly realizing Guy took the bait and snapped exactly the way he wanted, so every ounce of effort he poured into demanding those reparations and harsh penalties suddenly feels totally worth it. Especially because he finally realizes this is the moment to stop messing around and go all in. He slams into his chant, begging a flame to spear the guy ahead and blaze like a beacon. Then his fire arrow spell officially ignites, but he just stands his ground as the flames crash into his shield. Ryuji keeps staring, eyebrows knitting, because when the spell landed, it felt like nothing, no real resistance at all. Guy just shrugs it off and bursts into laughter, grilling Ryuji like, so you really think some low-level magic like that was going to do a damn thing to me? He keeps firing off trash talk, jabbing Ryuji with the reminder that no matter what he pulls off, he's still just a weak enchanter, and tells him he's all talk for someone who's still moving as slow as he always has. Ryuji doesn't look bothered one bit. He just flashes a small smile and tells Guy to ditch that heavy-looking armor. He clicks his tongue like it's pure frustration, and the tension between them keeps ratcheting higher. Guy snaps, yells at Ryuji to shut up, and hurls his sword forward with everything he's got, but Ryuji can't stop staring at his sublimation stone, and he's convinced this is the one thing keeping him from losing his boost. Guy just scoffs in his face, demanding to know if that pathetic move is really all he's got to prove. So Ryuji starts a fresh chant, begging the mana to surge together and snap into a bolt of lightning aimed straight at the swordsman. He finally lets the lightning rip, and the entire area erupts in a blinding blast that he barrels straight ahead, screaming at the top of his lungs, slicing through the smoke to slam the gap shut. Ryuji only lets out a heavy sigh because the spell lands and meets zero resistance, same exact deal as his fire arrows. A bad feeling crashes over him, and he clocks it instantly. The guy is totally setting some kind of trap, and that's why he blurts out the truth, then slams his appraisal skill into action to pinpoint exactly what's happening. A massive screen of data and status bars blasts onto Guy, spilling every secret he's been hiding right in front of Ryuji. Ryuji takes one look at Guy's gear and then it hits him. Besides that sword, the guy's got zero magic equipment on him, So this whole thing isn't coming from him, and then it all clicks. Marie has been the one messing with his magic this whole time, and the realization hits him like a punch. So he stares the guy right in the face and bluntly demands to know if he's using anti-magic to cheat. Guy doesn't even manage an answer. He just stands there, drenched in sweat, looking completely wrecked as the crowd stares on, clueless. Marie slips nearby and snaps a glowing device onto her back. Emin steps up, points at Guy, and demands an answer. Did he really just wreck a sacred duel by going dirty like that? Guy starts losing control, panicking hard and screaming that Ryuji is just spinning lies to ruin his image. But Ryuji shrugs it off, tells them it's all good, and pushes them right back into the fight like, come on, we're not stopping. He blurts out Guy's name one final time, right as he's about to move before. Before Guy even gets a blink off, Ryuji's in his face, yanks him up, and fires off, did you really have to cheat that badly just to knock down someone you think is a complete loser? Ryuji slammed him with such brutal force that he started to choke. Staring Guy dead in the eye, he tells him plain without those buffs, he's not even second class. He barrels forward, spitting paper tiger at Guy and tearing into his huge ego while Rage starts to crawl through him from the inside, and he can't stop panicking. How the heck does Ryuji have this much power to push him back? He is sweating bullets, staring down those 10 gold coins, and realizing he's about to lose 2 entire ranks, but he tells himself over and over that if he can just claw his way to the top rank, all that money will be easy to earn back. Guy refuses to swallow this demotion, so he flips the script and screams that Ryuji is the real cheater. He roars, no way. There's no chance some useless enchanter, the one who's supposedly helpless in a fight, packs this much power and still stands. And Ryuji decides the time is now. He steps up to Guy and lays it out, telling him he's been getting it wrong for way too long. A guy starts yelling that he's an enchanter built for the backline, but Ryuji cuts in and reminds him he only warned them not to expect him to fight like a mage. He locks eyes with the guy and flat out tells him, I never said I couldn't fight. Ryuji tells him it's actually pretty simple. When an amateur jumps into a pro-level fight, it just muddies everything up. So in the end, it made perfect sense he should lock in as the party's dedicated support. And he tells Guy he shouldn't even have to pause. He'd know it's the truth the moment he thinks. He says the only reason Guy noticed him was because he was playing the support role like it was all he could do, and kept treating him like weak trash the whole time, like that's all he'd ever be. Guy erupts in a scream as Ryuji swings his sword, blasts him clean across the room, and when Guy slams the ground hard, Sean just freezes in total shock, utterly unable to speak. Everything goes south the second a massive smoke bomb detonates out of nowhere, filling the room and freezing everyone mid-breath. A choking white haze sweeps over the whole place, and right away the others start coughing, yelling, what the hell is going on? Ryuji stands there stone calm in the middle of the chaos, staring at the smoke like, is this just one more of Marie's annoying little tricks? Then it hits him. There's no way it's for her. It's far too cheap and a shady smokescreen stunt. Yeah, that's pure Sean. Suddenly, Guy bursts straight out of the mist, eyes wild, screaming Ryuji's name at the top of his lungs and ordering him to die. He throws everything into a huge swing that tears through the air, but Ryuji just glances back like it's nothing at all. The two of them collide with brutal force, but Ryuji is lightning fast. He slams into the attack and forces it to connect hard enough to stop it cold. Guy's blade split clean in two, and the guy just froze stunned while the tip of his sword went flying off. Right as his brain catches up that his weapon is wrecked, Ryuji whips around and charges straight at him. Guy eats a brutal punch straight on the jaw, and a choking sound bursts out of him as he gets completely wrecked. The fight slams shut with an announcement Ryuji is the winner, and the guy just crumples to the ground, totally knocked out of the match as the crowd goes wild. Everyone stares at the wreckage, then Suzu shouts for Ryuji as Manori and Lene crowd in close, watching him like they're bracing for what comes next. He drops to his knees to check on her, then apologizes to Suzu, swearing he never should have left her behind in the first place, but she shoots him a look and tells him it's okay, because she's the one who chose to break things off with Manori after it all went down. Ryuji flashes her a gentle smile and tells her, don't sweat it, none of that matters right now. Lene looks absolutely stunned, blurting out whether that wild strength breaking the sword and dropping that kick came from a magic stone. Ryuji shoots back that he was running on the Fural Stone, the exact same one he used back during that landslide. He lifts the crystal and tells her straight up this exact magic stone is the reason he was able to pull off those moves earlier. But here's the catch, you have to start with empty hands to trigger it, and then it blasts your physical stats through the roof. Turns out it's a super rare stone called the Gift, wrapped in Furl's divine protection, one of the ancient war gods. Ryuji glances back at everything and brings up the purest stone he used before, saying it worked in a way that felt just like what's happening now. These stones come with wild rules, drain the soil, demand empty hands, but the power they unleash is on a whole other level. Lene is utterly stunned by the explanation, sitting there wondering if something has divine protection, can it even still be called enchantment magic? Minority whips her head around and shouts at Guy, still calling him the leader, but he's out cold, so Sean slings him over his shoulder and hauls him out fast. At last, the chaos dies down, and the whole crew huddles on the path. Ryuji steps in to wrap everything up. After they wrapped up that dual paperwork in Beckheimer, they never even got a second to breathe. He bursts onto the scene and officially declares the Altina party is formed, then all four of them stand poised and ready for action, and urges them to hunt down a quiet spot, kick back, and blow off some steam because everyone's completely beat. Minori lights up and agrees because they've got to get cleaned up first before they can head for the castle. After all that went down, the team pulls up on Suzu and runs quick checks, making sure she's really okay. And Suzu insists she's totally fine, then drops the bomb that Lene's medicine worked like magic on her. Lene raises their official invite like it's a battle banner and urges everyone to head straight for the castle town. Ryuji calls it a killer plan, and the whole crew springs into action, ready to move. They start marching straight for Laudinger, the royal capital, where everything about to change is waiting. A huge brand new stage is waiting for them to tear into. Now that they've come out on top, only 12 days have passed since they first left Beckheimer, and that brutal journey is finally about to end. Minori's feeling the burn for sure. She's so wiped out from all that walking that she can't even pretend it's fine. Lene forces a smile, tells her sister to hold on because they're practically sprinting toward the finish line, and she won't let doubt win, and just like that, her face lights up, she spots the city and beams, pointing at it like she can't believe it's real. Ryuji's jaw drops when they finally smash through to the very end of their brutal, never-ending journey, and just like that, bam, the royal capital Rodinger rises before them, its massive white towers clawing up into the sky. As soon as they step inside, the girls dive into trying on fresh outfits, and Lene leans in to tell Suzu they look absolutely adorable. So Suzu finally spills that she wanted to shake things up, while Lene can't stop gushing over her brand new fancy look. They're posted outside the fitting room, hovering and asking Minori how much longer she's going to take. But Minori yells for them to hold on, totally rattled because the skirt feels so wildly embarrassing. She finally pokes her head out, looking wiped out, while Ryuji just sits there and watches the rest bounce with nonstop energy. He whips his head around the shop, and the truth hits him hard. Someone like him has no business being here. He stands there, sweating buckets, feeling completely out of place with all those women shopping around him. He finally blurts out, "Can I just go check another shop by myself? You two are going to be here forever anyway." Lene shuts Rug down cold, saying there is zero chance he's leaving right now. And Suzu jumps in, cheeks puffed as she sulks because Ryuji won't lift a finger to help them pick the clothes they're trying on. Minori just stares at him like he's hopeless, then snaps that he's a complete blockhead for being so clueless about it. Later at the end, Suzu leaned in and told Ryuji to toughen up because he can't keep getting wiped out that fast. Rugi just sits there, stuck in his thoughts, baffled that girls can spend a lifetime grabbing just a handful of things. Confessing, he leaned over their meal, and the whole thing drained him so hard it felt like every last spark got ripped out. That shopping trip dragged out for a full 3 hours right when Ryuji finally started complaining. All three girls snapped their attention to him and blamed him straight to his face, saying he'd messed up by giving lazy feedback on their outfits. Ryuji gulps his beer, fuming at how unfair everything feels. Then Lene swoops in and lays out their plans for tomorrow. She swears the changes will be finished by morning, so we'd better dress up before we head for Lady Cece's. Ryuji nods and goes along with the plan, thinking it's the smart move, dress up first, then head straight to Lady Cece's place. And right back at the table, Suzu leans in and tells Lene, "This food is unreal, you have to taste it, seriously," and she urges her to try it herself. which makes Lene grin for a second, though Minori's got something else gnawing at her. As he watches them, Ryuji realizes the number of women in his life is exploding, and every one of them is getting ready to. He gets way too organized, and it freaks him out so bad, he starts wondering if he'll even survive being the only guy. But just as his thoughts start to spiral, he overhears a group of guys talking about the port in Salzstadt. He needs this trade fixed fast so everything can go back to normal, and that fires Ryuji's attention instantly. He whips his gaze to the table behind him, squinting like a detective, trying to tell if the guy yapping is really a merchant. As the man rips into it, he says they unearthed a massive resource vein in the old burn mine, and now a port is next. That would light the whole place up again, because no one should let a mine this valuable just rot away. At the table, the man won't stop talking, saying that even though Marquis Reichner is trying to fix the port, it's not happening because the king's buried in defenses he's prepping the northeast, paranoid about an invasion coming from Guam. They fled the city behind them, leaving everyone stuck wishing they could finally lock in on developing the Marquis land. Eavesdropping in, Ryuji snaps to it word about the mine has somehow spread everywhere by now. After wrestling with it, he realizes the real monster they're up against isn't the plan, it's the distribution. So the local claims about owning or making mines end up looking like an absolute disaster. Later, the whole crew marches straight to the palace where a guard checks their papers, then nods and confirms they're officially introduced. Altina welcomed Ryuji, Lene, Suzu, and Manori into the party and then snapped, "Come right in." They trail the guard through the estate's endless arched hallways, walking as if every turn is hiding something. Right when they're moving on, they collide with this huge shirtless guy. He grabs their attention and demands to know if they're the guests. The guard snaps into a sharp salute and blares out his confirmation as. The guard tells everyone that Ryuji and Lene are the minds behind the healing potions and the dispel stones. That giant from earlier suddenly snaps to, it recognizes who they are and goes absolutely hype in. He introduced himself as George Rochefort Beastain and casually dropped the bombshell that he's the king of the whole nation. The whole gang just freezes on the spot as Suzu barely scrambles out a stuttered greeting. Ryuji tries to play it cool, calls himself an enchanter, and the king just brushes him off like he's nothing until telling everyone to chill because there was absolutely no reason to act so formal around him. He flashes them a small smile, then gestures at the truth after all of this. It was them who really saved his life. But Ryuji just stares at the ground, convinced it'll be impossible for them to act normal, like they're about to leave The king just lets out a heavy sigh and keeps saying straight to their faces that he wants the act to stop and that they need to quit standing so stiff. Suzu just stands there, stunned and spiraling, convinced the king's kind words are wasted on her, like they'll never reach her at all. While the minorities start sweating bullets, Suzu gets hit with the terrifying reminder that they've never even spoken to a world leader before. Ryuji is just as stressed as the rest of them, straight up admitting they have zero clue how to act or what the rules are for something like this. But then he shrugs off hesitation, barrels ahead, and asks the king straight up how he's been feeling lately. King George lets out a tiny grunt and tells them straight up that he's got his absolute thanks for everything, telling him the curse is finally dead. And that medicine hits so hard, he's got more energy than he knows what to do with. He tells her that this is the exact reason he's been grinding out here every day, swinging that sword like his life depends on it. Right as the knight yells his name, he finally spots where the king's been all along, and relief hits him like a wave. Jorg wheeled around and told Knight Gotthard, "I'm here just in time. I ran into the crew behind those magic stones we were talking about, and they leave." Sleeve stared at Ryuji and Lene. Then it all clicked. Those two were the reason everything went down. Gotthard stands there like a titan, throws out his full name, and then drops the bombshell. He's not just any knight, he's the Grand Master. Lene's eyes widen as he blurts out that he heard some of his younger recruits were under their care a while back, like he's just dropped a bomb and he can't even finish his sentence. She gets all flustered and scrambles to play it cool, insisting she only did what felt right in that moment. Gotthard won't let it go. He keeps telling them that between helping the recruits and what they did for the king, he owes them a full night of gratitude. King Jorg snaps that they've chatted enough in the blazing sun and storms in with the truth he's not keeping his guests stuck standing there forever. So he yanks a guard over and barks, "Get everyone to the drawing room." The knight snaps a salute and bolts into action. While Jorg tells them he'll send Cece over right away, Everyone rushes into the fancy lounge to wait, and then the moment starts and Cece finally bursts through the door, and before anyone can react, she's thanking everyone for sticking it out and staying so patient. She grins and says it's been ages since they last met, and just like that, the whole group exhales because they're finally safe with a friend by their side. Cece glances over and blurts, "Are you Suzu?" And before anyone can hesitate, Ryuji steps forward and proudly introduces her as their youngest sister. Cece flashes Suzu a warm smile and tells her she's so relieved to see her back safe and sound, which snaps Suzu out of her daze for a split second. Then she shoots back to her feet, regains her voice, and thanks the princess for those kind words. Cece finally admits that this trip on has to have drained every single one of them. Everyone had been keeping an eye on the group as she points them to the comfy couches in the room, pushing everyone to finally drop into a seat and unwind. Once everyone finally gets settled in, Cece jumps in, saying they've got a ton to catch up on then. But she wants to take care of business first. She drops down, yanks out a heavy bag, and tells them the rest of their reward is already ready. Ryuji grabs the bag, tells the others to inspect every coin, and Lene just freezes, staring at the gold like her mind can't accept it's actually real. Ryuji tries to stay professional, kicking things off by calling her Your Highness, like respect is the only thing he's allowed to show. But he cuts him off on the spot, locking eyes, and demands he call her by her name, no excuses. Ryuji realizes she won't let the formal nonsense slide, so he caves and calls her Lady Tetsu, letting the tension finally ease up. Setsu lights up with a huge bright smile and blurts, "Yes," and that simple word leaves Ryuji staring at her like he's completely lost. Ryuji stares down at the mountain of gold, then points at it like, "Wait, what is this?" Because it's clearly way more than they agreed on earlier. Setsu grins and tells her it's true she stacked a little extra right on top of the original price, and she reminds him that her first request was nothing but them making a dispel magic stone. That stone ended up doing way more than she ever imagined. She adds that she's shelling out extra too because the two of them were actually kind enough to. They went out of their way to bring her a steady supply of medicine, all for their dad's health. She breaks it down like this: money isn't some random bonus, it's earned for very real reasons. And she honestly thinks that high price is completely fair, like they really did help her family that much. Cece tells you her dad's been way more energetic lately, and it turns out that spark is turning him into a total handful for everyone around him. Cece drops her gaze and blurts that her dad sent her a message he wants to thank them in person, and that's completely separate from the gold reward. She apologizes for the extra hassle, then insists they head to the audience chamber a bit later. Ryuji stares at the bag of gold in his hands. Stunned, this money alone is already way more than they ever deserved for the job. Cece slides into the circle with the group, throws out a steady reassurance, and makes it clear what they just pulled off isn't small at all. It's a massive deal leading to the... Later, the two of them stood in the massive throne room while the king commanded them to stand tall, proud of everything they just accomplished. The king sprawls on his throne and barks at them to lift their heads. So Ryuji the Enchanter and Lene the Alchemist stay on their knees as the crown makes its official address. He starts thanking them, calling out every detail like they somehow helped craft the Dispel Stone and the Stamina Potion. Admitting the whole situation was a brutal, tangled mess he had to wrestle with nonstop. Ryuji nods so fast it's basically instant, while Lene bows even lower and snaps the king awake, calling him out for being way too humble about everything. Ryuji stared down in awkward panic because he just totally tripped over his own words in front of the king. Lene looks just as rattled, cheeks burning, convinced she botched the greeting completely. But the king doesn't act bothered at all. His daughter already paid them. Sure, but he still insists on thanking them personally. Ryuji clenches his jaw and forces himself to stay calm as the king demands they speak up with whatever request they've got, making the whole group freezes for a heartbeat inside the gigantic room, staring at the offer like it just hit them. Cece grins and swears her father truly meant for both of them to come ask for it, saying he'll grant basically any wish they can dream up right here, right now. Lene starts to think it through, but panic hits fast. She can only rattle off tiny ideas, and she's got absolutely no clue what to ask a king. She shoots him a glance and asks if Ryuji has any ideas, and he turns back with a serious look and says, "Yeah, I've got something." He rises to his feet, locks eyes with Lady Cece, and tells her straight up there's one thing he's been dying to ask for. Cece leans in, listens to Ryuji, and nods like she's with him every step she tells him she doesn't see any real issue with asking the king for what he wants. But she can't help looking a little shaky as she trails off, like she's dying to know how far he's really about to take this. Ryuji stays down on one knee and lays it out. He insists it all boils down to one question in his head: how much they can truly get done. So he goes all in and straight up tells them he's got one exact request he wants to bring to the table. He wastes no time, straight up claiming his request is all about restoring the port of Salzstadt over in Reichner. He locks eyes with the king and ends with one clear demand: he wants the crown's full backing if this is going to happen. The king's eyes pinch shut for a second, and with a tiny sound of genuine interest, he takes in just how huge the kid's request really is. Just then, a sharp grunt snaps out from the side while the man near the throne fumes, letting his annoyance burst into the air. And here comes Gotthard, swearing he never ever imagined ordinary folks would dare to stick their noses into state affairs like this. Ryuji snaps to the comment, swivels his head, and starts sweating because who is this guy and why does he look like he's ready to explode? King George shuts Elmer down cold, snapping that common folks understand what nobles never will, and Elmer refuses to fold, arguing that as prime minister, his eyes see the world differently. And Ryuji breaks into a sweat as it finally clicks this grumpy old man isn't just some random, he's the guy running the whole country's government. And it's got to be Prime Minister Elmer von Stern. Ryuji locks in, because now he's in serious trouble, especially since he marched right up to the guy running the government and told him straight up that his methods were failing, like a massive slap to his whole legacy. And it's crystal clear the Prime Minister and King George are on total collision course, because King George finally cuts through the silence, shouting Ryuji's name at the top of his lungs. Then the king looms over them from his throne, glaring down like doom, and tells him straight up that he can't answer that request right now because a call this huge isn't something he can just make on his own authority. Ryuji shuts his eyes and nods, admitting he knew from the jump this was a ridiculous stretch to ask for something this huge, so he's not shocked the king can't just say yes. The king nods at once, then suddenly his fist clamps down on the armrest of his throne until it creaks under the pressure. Then he finally says, and he locks eyes with Ryuji, telling him straight up, as the king of this nation, he has to make sure his people's wishes don't just get heard, they actually count. King George locks eyes with Ryuji and swears on everything he's got he'll do whatever it takes to make that request come true. The whole crew storms out of the throne room, and Ryuji finally lets out this huge sigh like he's been holding his breath for hours, telling them that as long as the king keeps his eyes locked on the southwest, they should be safe. While they walk, Ryuji starts needling Lene for how freaked out she was so much that she actually bit her tongue back at the meeting, and Lene's instantly mortified, begging him to drop it and stop bringing it up. Goddard jumps in, tells them they nailed it, and claims helping out was nothing at all, while Lene shoots him a look, clearly not buying it. Cece spots them in the hall and cheers, telling them they crushed it today, she's already one step ahead, and then she drops the best news dinners ready for everyone. The tension finally lets up as they head out together, and someone laughs, saying they should just kick back and enjoy tonight. One of them blurts, "You ready to roll?" And the others nod hard. Then they all stride down the hall together. Suddenly, the story drops into a filthy, dark dungeon. Someone goes totally unhinged, grabs the bars, and screams for their stuff back, because none of this even makes sense. Turns out Manori's the one stuck behind those bars, and Suzu's on the other side, snapping at her to shut up before she makes everything spiral even worse. A nearby guard nods along and warns them after the uproar they just set off. Stirring up yet another scene is the very last thing they should do. Lene's eyes go wide with pure terror as the truth lands. Someone even says straight up that getting executed on the spot for high treason wouldn't be a stretch making. Suzu trails off, stunned by the accusation, but Manori cuts her off, screaming that Lene would never ever pull something like that. She's right there at the bars while Lene scrambles to stay calm, telling Manori she'll be fine, begging her not to blow this up while Ryuji sits alone in the dark, realizing he's been completely played. Then his mind starts racing. Who set him up? And what do they really want by keeping him trapped in the dark? Ryuji sits alone in the dark, realizing he's been completely played. By trapping him like this, he flinches, shakes it off in a heartbeat, and tells himself he can panic about the details later. Because Right now, he has to lock in. He snaps his gaze upward, face set, and straight up tells them first, we find a way out of here. Then the story snaps back to earlier that night, right after he finished meeting the king finish, when the moon's blazing over the castle towers. And Ryuji finally snags a rare moment alone. He flops onto the edge of a massive, fancy bed, lets out a deep, exhausted sigh, and tries to sort it all out earlier. The guards herded them through the halls, and Dietrich leaned in to tell everyone, we've got a room set up in the back wing, so just come with me and go get some sleep. Ryuji watches them stride off, and even as they're told to rest, he can't shake the feeling this is exactly when everything's about to explode into chaos. Ryuji flops onto the bed, hands laced behind his head, and lets out a breath like, yep, tonight's finally done. He starts to realize landing that meeting with the king was a huge win because it's going to hand them a serious edge from here on out. When he finally steps back and sees the whole picture, he realizes he didn't just break even. He walked away with more than he ever lost. Then it hits him. Every mess he dragged those girls through comes rushing back, and he knows he has to figure out how to make it right with Manori, Suzu, and Lene. He tells himself he'll figure out how to pay them back later, but right now he needs to shut the world out and get some rest. Before he can even settle in, a sudden noise from outside jolts him upright, wide awake, and razor alert in an instant. He stares out the window, baffled by the metallic crash echoing through the night this late. The moment his eyes lock in, everything flips. He knows, no doubt at all, this isn't some run-of-the-mill guard patrol. He snatches his cloak and rockets out of the room, charging straight toward the source of that noise. He stumbles on the guards, tangled in a chaotic brawl with a giant hooded monster, and the whole scene looks grim fast. Ryuji barrels into the hallway where the brawl is raging, shouting to the guards, I'm here to back you up. And the guards practically exhale in relief when they see him. One even recognizes him from Athena's side, while the other blurts that his help is exactly what they need right this second. Ryuji wastes zero time. He slams a magic stone into his strike, then hammers a brutal punch straight into the hooded figure's chest. Even as the hit finally lands, disaster strikes. Ryuji yanks back and his arm gets sliced open, and he just stands there completely stunned. He flinched from the brutal pain, then stared, realizing the guy he just clocked wasn't even close to as weak as he looked. When he looks closer at the spot he hit, he finds the skin beneath the cloak is solid stone, and that's when it clicks. This thing isn't human at all. The cloak finally tears wide open, and there it is, a huge, jagged rock monstrosity. And yeah, they're face to face with a golem. A hulking monster whips its massive stone arm at him, and Ryuji has to duck low and sprint out of the way before that thing crushes him. He yanks himself back up and blurts to the guards that the only way to bring this monster down is to track down its core and smash it to pieces. He shoots the idea straight away. The core is likely buried in the golem's stomach, and the guards snap to it, team up instantly, and launch their synchronized assault. Ryuji hunts for the perfect opening to slam the core while the guards keep it busy. Then Manori suddenly calls out to him. He just smirks, finally breathing easy now that his team actually showed up to back him up in the fight. He springs onto the monster's back, already betting that his usual punches won't land, so he's got to. He has to go a lot harder. He snatches the golem, then barks at it to stay down for a moment. He drives a magic stone straight into its head, and the blast pins it down hard. With the golem crushed in place, Ryuji roars for Manori to strike, now aims straight for its stomach. Manori yells back, launches forward with everything she's got, and charges in like she's determined to end this right now. She slams down a brutal strike that tears the golem's midsection clean apart. The stone monster crumples on the ground, wrecked to the core, while thick smoke pours over it. The royal guards are frozen in shock, staring in disbelief that the monster is really down for good. Ryuji's left standing there, alone after the fight, until a voice calls out, praising his performance, and then coldly reminding him, "You're late." Manori finally arrives, sword slung over her shoulder, and blurts out an apology because Lene fought her tooth and nail just to get out of bed. They crack open the monster's crystal and stare at it hard, only to realize it's a synthetic monocore forged with alchemy. Manori stares at the core and her eyes widen, because it's the exact same setup as the bear they fought back then. Lene peers into the darkness, spots the shard, and instantly knows it's the exact same kind of setup as their last run in. Suzu strides up to Ryuji and tells him she's done sweeping the area. She's almost certain there wasn't any intruder. She checks the readings and swears there's not a single shred of lingering mana leaking out of that building, so the next clue can only go one way, meaning the guard snaps to the truth those culprits can't have vanished. They're still trapped inside the castle. Ryuji nods and agrees, saying that's exactly what it looks like. They charge down the hallway toward a room, firing off questions. Is this the real crime scene? The guard ushers them ahead and nods, recognizing the four of them, Altina's party, right as they step into action. Ryuji and the crew are just standing there when a guard snaps, "That's it, you're all under arrest." And suddenly the whole mess lands on them. Ryuji is totally blindsided. He just gapes back, utterly stunned by the accusation. Chancellor Stern barges in and declares the whole thing is a tragedy, claiming he saw right through their little scheme. The group gets slammed behind bars, and Ryuji leans in, firing questions at the Chancellor. "So what are these secret motives you're talking about?" Ryuji snaps that they got seized out of nowhere, but Stern cuts him off and barks for him to stop pretending he's some innocent guy. Through the bars, the Chancellor glares at them and demands to know were they the ones stirring up that huge commotion. He explains the golem's core was built from alchemy, then tells Lene it was her because she's barely able to get the words out. Ryuji shouts at him, admitting Lene's an alchemist, then scrambles to justify why that doesn't automatically make her guilty. He's like, "So you're calling her a criminal just because of her job? That's painfully short-sighted." And then one of the guards snaps back at him, yelling that he better know exactly who he's talking to with that tone. The Chancellor snaps Ryujioff's head around and tells him, "Stop, this is way past the point for innocent talk, especially after what just happened." After his men finally pushed inside Lene's room and dug up what they'd been searching for, as he raises the dark crystal, he declares they've tracked down a magic core right down to the exact match of the ones powering those golems. Lene and Ryuji both snap still, eyes bulging as the horror of what they've just been caught doing hits them, and then Ryuji clenched his teeth hard because he just knew this was a total setup. There's no way Lene would ever hold on to a core like that. He replays what Lene told him back then, that even with all this mess, it makes alchemists look like absolute monsters. She let out a real breath of relief. Turns out it was Ryuji who showed up with that golem for the job. Ryuji had asked her back then if that was really the reason because she couldn't make them herself, but she only smiled and said that. And no, that wasn't it at all. He admitted, golems are insanely useful, a real way to help people. She stared at the ground and admitted she'd never been able to shake this weird feeling about trying to shove a soul into something lifeless. Lene stared up at the towering stone golem and admitted sure, it was useful, but the thought of actually building one always made her feel off, like something was just wrong. And Ryuji listened, nodded like he completely got her, and he said he understood because he also. Then he flashes her a smile and says, "Yeah, it totally makes sense an elf would want to respect the laws of nature like that." He tells her, "Don't hold back. If those thoughts hit later, say them out loud." Because they're in this together, he then insists they keep building each other up on the things they're bad at, though maybe. Which makes Lene tilt her gaze up at him, a gentle smile lighting her face as she quietly mouths her thanks for always being there. Then it cuts back. But right now, Ryuji clenches his teeth because the memory is slipping away, and he realizes they've got zero way to prove they're innocent. And just then, finally Minori snaps. She erupts in furious shouting, saying that the monocore they dug up was Lene's. But Ryuji slams her down fast, snaps for her to be quiet for a minute, and his sisters just stare at him in pure shock. The Chancellor locks eyes with them and growls that a crime like this usually means the death penalty, but then he coldly decides to exile them instead, straight out of the capital. He promises them they'll get some of their stuff back later, but until then he demands silence, no questions, no noise. Just as the Chancellor turns to leave, a voice snaps out from the prison's shadows calling his name. Chancellor Elmer steps up in front of everyone, eyes locked on the crowd as he gets ready to crack into the situation. Then the Ryuji blurts out from the side, asking if the king and Princess Cecily truly understand what's happening right now. Summer doesn't even blink. She tells them it's only natural, then drops the real bomb. The king and the prince are both insanely disappointed in them. He slams Ryuji with hard hit, jaw clenched in pure frustration, then mutters, "I understand," and snaps out a cold thanks like it cuts. Later, the whole group gets shoved behind locked doors, and Ryuji slumps alone in the dark, looking utterly spent, while Lene tucks himself into a corner and curls up tight. The prison's silence finally shatters when Suzu lets out a soft call to her older sister. He scans the room and shoots a quick look at Suzu, asking if she caught that vibe from Ryuji earlier because he never acts like that. Suzu nods and says the Ryuji he knows would never fly off the handle over something that didn't touch his sisters. So yeah, it's proof Lene has started meaning everything to him, Manori. Every smile lingered, and then she added, Lene's a precious friend to us too, because there's no way they're just going to stay quiet and let this end here. He reaches for the elf, yanks Lene in close, and pulls everyone together right there while they scramble to decide their next move. Manori keeps gripping Lene's hand and whispers that she has no reason to wear that gloomy face because she's done nothing wrong. Lene shoots her a look that says she's finally starting to feel better who snaps her focus back to her brother and softly calls his name, guiding him as she tells the others that if it's Ryuji, he's got a plan for this whole mess. She whips her gaze to him and demands, so what exactly do I do? Ryuji finally lifts his eyes with a razor-sharp grin, nods along, and declares it's time to escape this place. He hands Suzu a sharp mission, use her telepathy, and reach Lady Cece, and Suzu snaps into focus, nods, and swears she's on it, and the two sisters pour every ounce of their power into forging the link, but even when Lady Cece can nearly sense it, the connection still won't lock in cleanly. Suzu blurts that some kind of magic barrier is frying her signal, and Ryuji doesn't even flinch, he just smirks like, yeah, he figured they'd pull that trick. Lene stares at him, baffled how do you even send a message through a wall like that, and shoots back, asking what he's doing next. Ryuji just smirks and tells her it's a total piece of cake to fix, and then he rips out a giant, glowing magic circle and vows he'll crank up the telepathy's power until the barrier finally breaks and lets it through. Lady Cece and her guard finally burst into the cell, snapping the lock open and piling inside panicked faces everywhere as Cece demands, "Are you all okay?" Ryuji and the others are packed behind bars on the other side, and when Lady Cece finally storms in to grab them, Ryuji exhales like he's been holding his breath for forever, thanking her with shaking relief that the rescue actually worked. Cece groaned out an apology right away, telling her Suzu filled her in on everything, but she never imagined it would get this out of hand. She's totally baffled. How did this even slip past her? She says a report should have reached her by now, but she blurts that the guards were just stuck on their usual routine, watching the prisoners like it's any other day, clueless about what's really going on. And that's what makes. Ryuji clocked it instantly. Someone's been tugging every thread from the shadows, and he's dead sure the Prime Minister is the one pulling the strings. He can't stop asking why Lene got picked to be the target in the first place. Then his mind goes straight to the Prime Minister, and he starts suspecting they set her up just because she was standing in their way. Ryuji stands there with his arms crossed, talking like he can't believe it, and demanding why everyone's painting Lene as the villain. Lene looks completely wiped out from that whole exchange, and she tells Ryuji that every time he says it, it makes her sound like some kind of bad kid. Suzu snaps up the moment she meets her brother's eyes, wears a serious face, and asks if she's the only bad child here. Ryuji stares, stunned, as the pieces finally click in his head, then he can't stop wondering if Lene's alchemy was just a convenient excuse to shove them out of the capital. Manori drops her gaze and finally admits she's been feeling it too. She tells Ryuji she's sure it went down just like that. And then Ryuji goes silent, and a new theory slams into his head. If the plan was to erase them just because they were in the way then. And they've got to link every single clue back to that dispel magic stone they unearthed, because he's sure the stone and the curse hanging over the king are the heart of this whole nightmare. He still remembers the moment they shattered that curse for Lady Cece in the first place. And it smacks him hard somehow. They've blown the Prime Minister's schemes twice already, and now that they've finally clawed their way back to the royal capital, they're basically a giant roadblock standing between the enemy and whatever he's cooking up next. Ryuji's gaze turns ice cold as he speaks, realizing the Chancellor just wants them gone, so they can't mess with the king or Lady Cece anymore. Then he fires back, asking if the plan is to exile them for good. He whips around to Lady Cece, and she's just as locked in. She nods and says, if the Chancellor is really pulling the strings, this is no small deal. It has to be dealt with right now. She clenches her resolve and snaps into action, telling the whole group she's calling an immediate meeting with her father, the king, right here in the audience chamber. The story snaps to the huge throne room, where the king is already waiting, and Lady Cece hisses that the chancellor will show up exactly like he did yesterday, so everyone better be ready. The throne room feels like a pressure cooker. Elmer stands there, eyes locked on everyone, as silence grips them all and nobody dares to move. King George leans down from his seat, tells them what he's been saying, and admits he already knows the whole story his daughter filled him in, so he nods at everything they've survived. But then it hits, things go from messy to serious. He tells Ryuji and the others that even if he owes them a huge favor, he can't just trust them blindly. He needs proof, so he makes it crystal clear if they want to move forward, they've got to clear their names right then, right there. The king brings it up how he bolted out last night at the second he heard the fighting, then recounts how his guards were already clashing with a suspicious guy until Ryuji's crew crashed the fight and joined in. Turns out the attacker wasn't a person at all. It was a target powered by a fake monocore, and because that's alchemy, Lene got marked as the prime suspect and got locked up on the spot. Lene looks completely shaken as the king locks eyes with her and demands, "Was it really like that?" She can only nod and whisper, "Yes." The king seethes at being left in the dark, snaps his attention to Gotthard, and demands to know why he was never told what was going on. Gotthard dips his head, admits he's clueless too, then snaps that if the Imperial Guard is even hiding info like this, that's a huge catastrophe waiting to blow. Elmer strides in to calm the king down, tells him to relax, and vows he'll dig into what happened with those soldiers immediately. Elmer keeps talking, hammering the point that Gotthard can't possibly watch every single low-ranking soldier during training, so calling him to blame for what happened is just cruel. The king listens and has no choice but to swallow his pride, because Elmer's right. Then he fires off a question to Elmer. Does he know anything about what's going on? And Elmer just drops his head, admitting he has zero clue about the whole thing. And he acts like it's no big deal, saying that if those military officers don't file the report the right way, the info never even climbs all the way to his desk. Suzu and Lene don't buy it for a second. They're getting fed up because the guy straight up showed up at the dungeon, yet he's acting like he has no clue what's going on. Ryuji keeps his eyes on the whole exchange, certain a guy like this doesn't just bungle his way into getting caught that easily. He finally gets it. His crew is supposed to be exiled and wiped from the board by now. Yet for them, they're only getting a shot to speak because the chaos spiraled into something the Prime Minister never saw coming. Ryuji knows they've got to track down real proof of what these guys are doing no matter what it takes. But Elmer just stands there, chilling way too hard, and Ryuji can't help wondering why he's still so calm. Lene and Ryuji suddenly stop dead in their tracks as a crushing pressure slams into the entire room. The floor rips and cracks under some insane weight, and Elmer just sits there like it's nothing, casually asking what the commotion is even about. Right then, a monstrous wall of rock and debris blasts inward straight into him. A giant stone golem crashes into the hall, and the king and his guards just freeze, staring in pure, stunned disbelief. Lene finally clicks Elmer's smug grin wasn't random at all. He'd been hiding a monster behind the scenes the whole damn time. As she screams his name in full panic, Ryuji just shoots her a quick nod and never breaks eye contact with the threat. He can tell it's pure brute force, but honestly, it makes total sense when you've got a prime minister. Cutting them down is quicker than dragging through all those endless political games. If they can't survive this fight, they don't just lose, they get locked out of their one shot to prove they're innocent. He left the massive stone golem right in front of them, standing there like a loaded weapon, ready to smash them all. Ryuji starts snapping the clues together, just like the Prime Minister is watching everything unfold. Playing those petty political games is a total waste. He could wipe everyone out and be done in one move. Spotting the danger, King George snatches his weapon, tells Gotthard he's charging in to help, but the Knight Commander snaps in front of him right away, barking at the king that he's got to stay back and stay out of the crossfire. Ryuji steps forward, nods to the commander, and tells the king, still with respect, that he's right. Yeah, stuff like this. Only real adventurers, people who live for danger for a living, can handle it. He tells him, leave the golem to me and my crew. But then he leans in and hammers the king with a razor-sharp warning, keep your eyes on your own back. Elmer just stands there and snaps his tongue, seething because Ryuji clocked his little scheme while, as the colossal stone golem unleashes a deafening roar, it charges forward like a living nightmare. ready to smash anything that gets in its way. Ryuji rockets into the clash, yells his diamond monostone spell, and hammers the enemy with a brutal storm of rocks. He screams for the attack to land as the stones slam the giant, detonating a brutal burst of dust and debris. But the golem won't even twitch, so Ryuji snaps into action and slams his Vajra release the second he can. He poured even more power into the hit with a fuel magic stone, trying to smash straight through that brutal armor. The guy's finally clocking it. This golem is way tougher than the one from last night, and landing a hit that knocks something this huge down is going to be a brutal problem. He tells himself he has to hold the line no matter what until the others come back, and right at that moment he hears someone call his name. Lene, Manori, and Suzu finally barged into the room, panting hard and blurting apologies for keeping him waiting. Ryuji glances back with a grin, fully confident, yeah, their timing is dead on for what he's about to pull off. He wastes zero time and waves Manori over, demanding she hit the front line with him. As he barked for Suzu and Lene to get ready, he pushed the moment because the whole crew was about to team up and take this down together. Ryuji loudly tells everyone, "I'm about to blast Manori with an enhancement spell," and orders the crew to hold the golem off for a moment. Suzu and Lene snap back, "We've got this," then charge straight at that giant, grinding avalanche of moving rocks. Suzu wastes zero time. She snaps her lightning net into place and commands the electric energy to crawl all over the golem's massive body. As she keeps the chant rolling, she calls straight to the god of magic, begging for just a sliver of that power. She wraps it up by demanding a hammer-like punch of power so they can crush the stone monster. And just like that, her blank, non-spark web grid bursts to life, zapping and yanking the golem into a snarled wreck of crackling energy. The moment the magic locks it down, it screams a deafening roar, and the entire room starts shaking like it's about to split. Ryuji screams above the chaos that the second Minori's power-up ends. They've got to slam straight for the legs before it keeps thrashing and moving again. Minori shoots him a quick nod, and he's primed to move the instant the spell lands. Lene's drowning in the pressure. She keeps telling Suzu, "I'm sorry," but the truth is she's not sure she can keep her life together much longer. Suzu dug in her heels and decided she'd seen enough of this thing's power. Now she was going to put an end to it. She snaps back into chanting, begging her god for one tiny glimpse, just enough to glimpse the even greater power waiting beyond it. She screams she's taking one last shot, and right above them, a massive mechanical hammer starts to materialize in midair. Mjolnir, the legendary hammer, comes crashing down with a thunderous slam that rattles the whole room, and then Minori spots her opening and yells, "Suzu, Lene!" demanding the switch so she can slam it home and finish the job. She looks fully locked in, then tells the golem it's about to feel one of her moves hit right from her. She surges forward on sheer Kyrie skill, snapping her blade straight into the stone beast's core. She doesn't even pause. She swings a brutal horizontal slash and cleaves straight through the golem's torso. The hit slams the monster so hard it can't take it. Boom. Its body shatters into a million chunks of rock, scattering everything, leaving. Godhard and the crew watched from the sidelines like it was all over. Yet he couldn't shake the nagging doubt that they didn't finish him for good. Dust whirls through the air as someone screams, "Lane," and he's frozen in the middle of the rubble, trapped mid-ruin. Ryuji grunts through the pain as a brutal hit lands, and he twists his body just in time to slip past. Shielding herself from the blast, she jerks forward in pure shock, screaming his name as he tumbles and gets. He gets slammed by a massive blast of energy and flying debris that detonates through the room and leaves nothing behind. Lene and Minori sprint straight to the crater, panicking as they shout at Ryuji, "Please tell me you're still alive." And then I caught him on the floor, gripping his head, moaning that every single inch of him was screaming in pain. He realizes that if he hadn't fired off his diamond skill on raw instinct, there's no way he would have pulled it off. But Suzu isn't letting that slide. She snaps back that of course he's in pain after pulling a stunt like that. Lene stares at him, relief crashing in, and worry following right behind. She's grateful he saved the day, but she snaps that he's reckless to the bone. Ryuji was left with nothing to do, so he forced a shaky smile, then apologized for the scare. Minori whips her gaze toward the chaos, still trying to make sense of what just exploded, and she blurts out, "What was that?" Someone nods as they stare at the giant crystal golem, and their stomach drops. Its healing speed is straight up terrifying. Ryuji clenches up, beads of sweat popping as it hits him if they can't find a way to stop it from moving. They've got one shot, keep slipping every brutal blow, and then slam the core before it finishes him. Suzu blurts from the side, warning him not to shatter the magic core, and that throws Ryuji into total confusion, so he demands, "Then how are we even supposed to win?" She locks eyes with all business and makes it crystal clear she's got a real plan for what happens next. Suzu whips around to Lene and asks, "Do you happen to have any oil mixed in with those medicinal supplies of yours?" Lene just freezes on the spot, eyes bulging. Utterly baffled, why on earth would anyone need oil right now? Close by, the knights stare at their swords like they've failed. This thing is too huge and too solid, and Ryuji scrambles for a real way through. Dietrich's eyes lock in. He tells the crew that right now the only mission is to grab enough time to keep the king and Lady C safe. Dietrich watches them and finally clocks it. Ryuji's got a real plan, so he snaps to the knights. Trust them and just hold the line. Ryuji whips his head back and asks if everyone's ready to move, because we're officially rolling with the strategy, and Manori fixes him with a serious stare, then flashes a quick nod that screams, "I'm ready." Cece blurts her agreement, eyes burning with the same stubborn determination to push this through, while Aline snaps to attention, eyes razor sharp as the whole team rushes into position. Ryuji barrels in, heckling the golem hard, calling it a big oaf to keep its eyes locked on him. He skids across the floor, shouting that he'll tie that monster up by dodging every strike with his adamantine skill blazing, and Suzu and Lene slip in right behind them, and the second that opening hits, the golem's eyes lock onto Ryuji. Nothing else matters. Suzu shoots her spark web and slings it across the massive crystal beast, trapping it in a crackling net of lightning so it can't move. The minority fighter drops straight onto the monster's back, barking that it's finally showtime and this thing's going down. The massive crystal golem starts to buckle, and deep cracks rip through it as the pressure keeps piling on. A brutal hit, its heavy body completely shatters the second it slams the floor. Ryuji steps back, eyes locked on it as he hurls an oil flask into the chaos and yells at Suzu that the rest is all on her. Now he's done with this part. Suzu strides forward, yells for her magic, and whips it into a colossal whirlwind that blasts forward with brutal force, sending a brutal blast of wind rips through the room, whipping every shattered scrap of the monster and smearing it in oily slick. Gotthard clocks it. Those stones stopped, reforming while Dietrich snaps into it, sniffs the air and blurts, "Is it?" Turns out it's oil they're smelling. Ryuji flashes a confident nod and straight up confirms, "Yep, that's exactly it." Right, he breaks it down. The golem's healing trick basically hauls in the stones all around it and patches itself back together. So he whips Suzu's whirlwind into action, spraying every inch with razor-precise oil, and now the slick coating keeps the stones from sticking, so if it tries to stand, the monster just keeps slipping and falling. Ryuji stared at the wreckage, and the monster looked like it was barely standing. Basically finished, and the girls are absolutely stunned. Lene swears the plan is genius, and Manori just smiles, saying it's exactly what she expected from their brainy mage making. Suzu lets it all slip into a smug little grin, just standing there, giggling like she owns the moment. Then it all drops into the next beat. Ryuji dives right back into action. He tells Suzu the monocore is still intact and demands what they should do with it. Suzu glances at the king, and he asks if he should come over. Suzu gives a small, quiet nod, letting him join them. Elmer snaps instantly, erupts in anger, and screams that it's way too dangerous for the king to get anywhere near it, but the king shuts him down with a deadly stare, then snaps, "Quiet!" and demands Elmer wait just a minute. Everything goes dead silent as the king strides up to the group huddled beside the pile of shattered stone, and Suzu kicks off her job, digs into the core's past with her magic, and chants for history to claw its way into view. In the vision, Elmer spills that the old core was destroyed back then, and the guy shoots back, "Next time you'll need a way stronger golem." The vision slams into the room like a wrecking ball, freezing every single person in place, utterly stunned, and then Ryuji finally snaps into place. This whole time, Suzu has been steering the board, holding that core in her grip like it was the key to everything. The king snaps his attention straight to Elmer, barking, "What the hell did you just see in that vision?" Elmer just freezes in place, sweat pouring as the king drills him with a stare so he can barely choke out a single word. Elmer suddenly snaps, then erupts in yelling, screaming that it's all a lie, insisting the girls are just putting on a fake illusion to ruin him and make him look bad. He keeps lunging forward, looking utterly shattered, begging the king not to buy their scams, but the king just glares at him with crushing disappointment and says it's downright painful to watch him act like this. He shuts Elmer down cold, blasting his excuses with the fact that this memory magic is so dependable, it's even used as courtroom evidence. And just as the full weight of it hits, Elmer crumples to his knees, no words left, only the silence of impact. The king snaps his guards to snatch Elmer away, then orders a frantic hunt for the royal alchemist who'd saved him. The guards snap, shout right away, and drag Elmer off while he just collapses, utterly crushed, and falls there defeated and up. Right above the castle, the clouds start to break apart, and that suffocating weight finally lifts off the air. On the balcony, Cece steps forward, tells everyone they were a huge help, and blurts out an apology for dragging them into all that mess. But Suzu just grins at her, saying not to worry about it anymore because they've finally cleared their names. Manori jumps in too, saying she genuinely hopes everyone keeps supporting their workshop from now on, which makes the king burst into laughter, and he swears he'll reach out for anything else that pops up. Cece blurts out a reminder, then the king nods like, yeah, that's it, as he reaches for a special document. Ryuji is handed a sealed envelope, and the man snaps into explanation. Inside is the official blueprint for rebuilding and delivering reconstruction support to the port of Salzstadt. Ryuji stares at the letter like a weight just lifted off his chest, then tells the king he can't even put into words how grateful he is. But the king shuts him down, telling him to forget it, and swears this little gesture is nothing compared to what he truly owes them. King George leans in and asks Cece if she agrees with every word he said. She just flashes a smile and gives him a fast, solid yes as. As the king officially declares every last one of them heroes for saving the whole country, Lene and Suzu burst into cheering and waving like they're on top of the world, while Ryuji and Manori just soak it all in, feeling pretty damn good about it. Meanwhile, Elmer sneaks through the darkness after ripping out of his cell, panicking that the guards will close in on him in the castle town. So he ducks into a local hideout, hoodie pulled low, and grumbles like the whole world just fell apart. Right beside him, Guy is straight up losing control, spitting furious curses at those annoying adventurers who just ruined everything for them. Elmer realizes he has to get out fast before this spirals, while Guy slams the table and screams at the top of his lungs, demanding where Ryuji could have vanished to. Sean steps in and tries to snap him back to reality, pushing the idea that it's finally time to let Ryuji go, because they still have that promise hanging over them to the guildmaster. But Guy just stares, totally blindsided by the suggestion. He snaps at his crew and hammers the truth in there, knee-deep in this mess, because they were the first ones who got caught. Then the bombshell hits. Turns out they didn't just lose their status, they got shoved all the way down to the 6th rank. He's freaking out hard because there's zero chance they can cough up 500 gold with the pathetic rewards from their brand new low-rank quest. To make it even worse, ever since they got demoted, Marie has gone completely uncooperative, and the whole situation spiraled. Tensions spike, then a voice snaps from the shadows, calling Guy out for being too worked up, and Guy instantly whips around, furious, demanding who the hell is hiding there. The hooded figure snaps at him to calm down. Before dropping the bombshell, he just happened to overhear them talking about a guy named Ryuji. The second the stranger catches his attention, the guy blurts out, "Do I know you, and what's it gonna kwatoki?" But when the stranger says he doesn't need a single cent, the guy's curiosity only burns brighter. That only makes Guy even more suspicious. He slams his hand down and demands the man's real motive. And the stranger leans in, saying he's got a debt of his own to settle with Ryuji too. A dark glare snaps across his face, and he decides he's ready to hear out whatever that man's about to say. He pushed the hooded man into a smirk good, because that guy's finally getting the plan fast. The hooded stranger leans in, a sinister grin locked on him, and tells Guy to wipe out Ryuji himself. The guy tilts his chin down with a nasty smirk, like, yeah, he's finally agreeing they've got to get rid of him. Meanwhile, Ryuji is soaking up a rare calm, stretching his arms after wrapping up a fresh batch of stones. He hears his name shouted, whips his head up, and locks eyes with a face he knows like family. It's Lene. She tells him lunch is almost ready, then pushes him to run, grab the others. Ryuji pops up with a grin, tells her he's got it covered, then dashes outside. Right when Lana and Lena spot him, they start waving like crazy and shout for their big brother. He strides up to the path and fires off a quick question to the two girls, "How's everything going?" They both shout with bright grins, yelling that everything's going perfectly as they sprint up to meet him. The sisters break it down thanks to an intro from Thor. They've got real people jumping in to help. Lana tells them that tons of merchants and workers from their guilds have stormed in to lend a hand, and she's freaking thrilled that Manori and Suzu jump in, calling them absolute lifesavers while Manori just flashes this calm smile. Ryuji lets out a breath of relief when he hears the news his deal with Marquis Leichner was absolutely worth every bit of effort. He swings his gaze to the crew of workers, then turns back with a firm nod and thanks every single one of them for their help before, ordering the whole crew to take a break because lunch is seconds away. Lene bolts straight for the food, but Lana snatches her back and yells at her to wash her hands first. As the girls run off, Ryuji steals a quiet moment to himself like, finally, everything's starting to click. Then the tale snaps back a full week right when a door swings open into a fancy room. Ryuji and Lene are sprawled on the couch when the door swings open and the man stumbles in, breathless, apologizing for being late. The man steps up to the pair, points at himself, and declares, "I'm Walter von Reichner." Walter kicks things off by telling everyone how the king bestowed on him the rank of Marquis right at the start. Ryuji jumps in, saying he's only a third-class adventurer, plus he's an enchanter, and then Aline flashes a polite smile and introduces herself again, then drops the bomb that she's a third-class alchemist too. Walter leans in and says, "Yeah, that official letter's not the whole story. People swear Ryuji can make crops ripen overnight." And then he lets the rumor hang in the air. Turns out the local markets are booming because of it, so while they're out there, they're at. Asks if there's a way to pull off the same trick for the other fields around here too. Ryuji bursts in, saying he'd love to help, but then shuts it down fast, explaining the special magic stones they need are nearly impossible to get. Walter looks totally worn out as he finally admits he's been getting hit with nonstop complaints from the other farmers lately. He considered slowing it down for a second, but the market's moving so fast that it feels like a total waste. Ryuji glances up and blurts that he desperately wants to help, but he's stuck. He doesn't know how yet. Ryuji blurts out, "Is there any way we can make this work?" And Lene shoots back, "We just need to recruit help through the commerce and industry guild people who know those fields." And then she trails off. They start hashing out a tight set of rules so the number of packages each person ships stays fair for everyone. And Ryuji leans in and tells everyone he truly believes this plan could finally pull the local farmers out of the money troubles they've been drowning in lately. Walter actually thinks the plan sounds great, but he tells everyone he'll need to ask the other farmers first before they commit, so he throws out a suggestion and goes from there. It's basically telling them to hit pause on that talk for now, so they can finally dive into the real, most important part of the meeting. Walter says the one thing he's desperate to talk about is the harbor. And he says, since the two of them went straight to the king and hashed everything out, it looks like things are finally starting to turn around. Walter fires off a heartfelt thank you, but Ryuji just grins and tells them they'll get something out of it too once the trade lines finally get back to normal. And Walter nods like, "Yeah, that's a fair point." And you can practically see the tension melt as he starts to relax right as he points out that getting everything moving again is a massive deal, especially when you're an enchanter or an alchemist trying to keep your whole life's work from stalling. Lene looks totally chill as she sips her tea, but then she snaps the vibe. This is basically life or death for them, and if they don't start getting people to buy their potions and magic stones fast, they're done, so what? And Walter drops the bombshell based on the current timetable. The whole restoration will be finished in just 3 months. Lene asks if they'll start trading with the people overseas once the port is fixed. But Walter admits he can't say for sure yet, especially with everything that's about to happen even. He's dead sure that if the king keeps pushing the harbor project from the front, everything will suddenly start moving at lightning speed. He sounds totally confident as he tells them, "Mark my words, this will become the top port in the Southwest again." The sun hangs over the quiet workshop roof, and after this brutal long day, the lights are finally about to fade. Ryuji starts staring at how far they've come back to that very first request from Lady Cece, which erupted into that brutal duel he had to fight in Beckheimer. After that, the whole situation just kept spiraling until they slammed straight into the middle of the royal capital's raging chaos. And finally, it all snapped into place. He landed a business deal with Walter, and it hit him hard. Everything has changed, and he can't ignore it anymore. Ryuji's life has been a full-on whirlwind lately, but in the past 2 weeks, He's finally found his footing, jumping into a steady routine and knocking out request after request for the Commerce and Industry Guild. And it's paying off big time. He's been grinding out magic stones nonstop, while Lene keeps her eyes locked on her medicine. Ryuji stares at his finished work with this massive grin, like he's finally living the exact life he's been dreaming of. Meanwhile, Manori and Suzu are out there racking up commission after commission, staying on the move and juggling everything like it's a nonstop challenge. And Ryuji even slips away to help Lana and Lene out in their fields, fitting right into the community like he's always belonged there. Once that port's fixed and trade finally starts flowing again, he figures they'll be fully in the clear, and honestly, he'd love nothing more than to coast in this peaceful little life forever. Then out of nowhere, that strange noise snaps his focus, forcing him to halt mid-step as his mind races what the heck is happening. He spots Lene nearby and tells her he's been hearing that exact sound. Lately, he's been thinking about it nonstop, so he strides over, corners her, and demands to know what she's really been up to back here. Lene swivels around with a sheepish grin and admits she's been slipping in some combat training on her own. Ryuji stares there completely blindsided, repeating combat training like he can't wrap his head around what he just heard. He jabs a finger at the strange weapon in her hand and demands, "Is that really a gun?" And Lene nods and tells him it's a special alchemical version. She reels backward through every wild nightmare they've survived, like the goblin hero and that towering golem they battled in the capital, and then she leans in and tells Ryuji that he's already done so much for her lately. She just wants to figure out how to be even more useful to him too. Then boom, the moment shatters. As Suzu and Manori suddenly burst in, Suzu starts waving like crazy and yells at them to come over. She snaps the group back to reality, reminding them they all swore they'd head out today to grab supplies, then asks if they should waste any more time and get moving now. Lene snaps, "Wait, I almost forgot," and rushes off to get her stuff ready, while Ryuji grins and decides he'll tag along for the trip. Lene tilts her head up at him and asks, straight up, if he's actually coming with her this time, and then she cuts herself off mid-sentence, like she's just seen trouble coming. Ryuji tells her he has to restock a few supplies anyway, then leans in and asks how things are going over at the fields. Lana says the Commerce and Industry Guild finally sent extra hands, and now they've got enough people to crush the workload without burning out. An older woman leans in and praises Lene, saying they've both been absolutely crushing it lately. Minori cracks her arm like she's itching to move, admitting she gets downright restless the moment she stops moving around, and Suzu nods in agreement, saying that even a mage's body starts to feel sluggish when there's not enough action. They stare at the flowers they've gathered, and someone gives a quick nod. "This amount is more than enough for what we need." Ryuji pops back over to the group and asks, "Are we missing anything we still gotta find?" Lene realizes they're running dangerously low on salt, so she blurts that they need to hit the salt lake for brine right now. Then she stops mid-sentence. Then, out of nowhere, the air turns heavy, and a dark, creepy chill spreads over the whole group like a warning from the shadows. Everyone snaps to attention with wide eyes, completely blindsided by that sudden shift in the air. Lene is left totally speechless by that sickening sensation, and Minority admits she's been hit with a brutally bad feeling about whatever just happened. Ryuji stood there stunned, trying to figure out what that weird sensation even was. Then that restless stir in his chest kicked and wouldn't let up. Suzu yells his name, and it snaps him out of it when he looks up. He's clearly rattled from everything that just happened. She tells him she's getting a terrible vibe and insists they have to haul it back home as fast as possible. And Ryuji meets her gaze, nods instantly, and the truth hits him. She's dead right about everything. Lene snaps that she's feeling something's off too, so the whole crew breaks into a full sprint through the trees. They finally stumble back and then freeze dead in their tracks, utterly stunned by what they see right in front of them. People are sprawled all over the ground, like they got absolutely wrecked. Ryuji blurts, "What the heck happened here?" And Suzu snaps her hand toward the field, pushing him to go check it out. It's a mud golem, but someone shattered it now. It's just broken rocks and churned dirt. Ryuji leaned in and made it clear, sure, these things are usually fragile, but his enchantments were on it, so it had no business breaking that easily. Lene lunges over one of the guys on the ground, snapping, "Are you okay? Tell me, are you hurt?" He jerks his gaze up at her, blurts out an apology for everything that went down, and insists he's mostly okay, but then Then he slams down the most brutal news: Lana and Lene have been kidnapped. Lene's face drains of color instantly, and Suzu bursts in and demands, "Who took them?" But the guy only shakes his head, clueless, like he has no idea at all. He says 3 adventurers just burst in out of nowhere and, without warning, immediately started a fight. He drops his gaze in shame, admitting, "We tried our hardest to protect the girls, but we couldn't keep up with them." And Ryuji stood there, racking his brain about those 3 adventurers until a voice shouted that they'd found something. Another guy strides up, thrusts a crumpled paper into Ryuji's hands, and blurts that some big dude ordered him to deliver it. Suzu snatches one look at the note, and the handwriting hits her like a punch, because she knows that script, even if she can't finish the thought. When Ryuji clamps down on that paper so hard his knuckles turn bone white, it's exactly who he was sure it would be. Ryuji is absolutely livid. He freezes in place with a terrifying stare, then growls out the guy's name under his breath. The whole group strides into the ruined old building together, closing in on the exact spot where. The guy just sits there, waiting like he owns the place. Then he looks up with a smug grin and blurts out that he can't believe they actually showed up. He admits he has no idea how they tracked them to this exact spot, but Ryuji doesn't care about. He cuts the small talk, glares at Guy, and rips into him, demanding he hand Lana and Lene back, and pressing hard on where they're hiding. Guy yells that they're right there, and then bam, Marie appears behind the 2 sisters, telling Ryuji to breathe easy, they're safe. Lene whips her gaze to Ryuji, tears burning in her eyes, and cries out his name right as her sister just stands there. There, he just snaps completely, and the guy scoffs at the whole scene, then tells Marie she's been nothing but in the way ever since they got here. He stares at the bruises marring her face and snaps whether she's not been beaten enough yet, but Marie doesn't. She refuses to back down. She shoots back that he's just a kid, and she can't stand there and watch something like this unfold. Lene glances at Marie, and his face tightens. He can't shake the worry about how everything's about to go sideways. Guy just scoffs like, "I've been acting like this the whole time." Ryuji stares at Marie and Sean, clocking it instantly. They're not stepping in this time. Just dead weight. He can't even deny it. He never truly trusted Guy from the start. And then the thought hits him hard. It's wild he crushed his promise so fast. Ryuji leans in and asks what he's really after. Because if it's only about money, he wants the truth. The guy stares into space, jaw slack, just blurting money over and over like it's the only thing left in his head. A creepy grin cracks across his face, and he bursts into a laugh that echoes in his own head. Then it hits him like a lightning bolt. He snaps into action, bursts out loud, and screams that he's finally figured out the whole puzzle. He snaps on this weird mask, screams that he owes Marie money, and admits he totally brain-fogged the debt until right now. Ryuji just gapes at him, totally frozen by how badly this guy's life is falling apart. Marie is totally blindsided when Guy suddenly snaps at him to wait, then demands, "What did you forget?" He doesn't sugarcoat it. If he didn't owe her money, he'd have left her behind ages ago. Ryuji just stares at the whole meltdown, stunned as Guy completely loses his mind right in front of him. And he corners him for the truth, demanding to know why the hell he kidnapped those 2 in the first place if the money wasn't the real prize. From the shadows, this guy flashes a creepy grin and acts like it's all pretty simple, but then his mask gets ripped away the moment everything detonates into chaos, and the whole plan goes off the rails fast. A brutal explosion tears through the area, and both of them lurch as screams rip from their mouths when the blast catches them right through the moment they freeze. They stagger, bruised and rattled, while the dust drifts down over the ruins. Ryuji rushes over to check on Lene, and she reassures him she's mostly fine. The 2 of them scramble to steady themselves, but the attack shock hits them hard, both completely reeling. The smoke finally drifts away, and there they are, Manori and Suzu, caught in the dark figure's grip. Ryuji comes out screaming their names, staring straight at them. The guy drops the act, flashes a twisted grin, and tells them straight up that his plan was never anything else, just baiting the whole group out. He starts raging about how everyone shoved him aside and treated him like an idiot for years, and he keeps tightening his grip on Minori's neck, so he snaps his focus to Suzu as well, swearing he'll unleash his power and finally smash both of them into submission. Ryuji snaps. He surges forward, cursing under his breath, and demands the guy free both of the girls. But then a magic fuel stone detonates out of nowhere, blasting the area with a blinding flash of light and shoving everyone back. Lene shoots over to check on the girls. Minori's coughing nonstop, and Suzu blurts that they're hanging on by a thread. Ryuji realizes something's off the second he makes contact. No armor at all, just bare. And Guy just shrugs it off with a laugh, grilling Ryuji like, seriously, do you think a move like that could actually work on me? Ryuji freezes in total shock, staring at the enemy. Then it hits him, and he realizes with horror exactly what he's become. Ryuji just stares in pure shock as he realizes Guy has literally transformed himself into a chimera guy. A guy flashes him a twisted, creepy stare and straight up confirms he's right, while Ryuji warns him there's no backing out now. Ryuji's face fell hard as he told the guy, I always knew you were an idiot, but he never saw it coming. Someone would ditch their humanity just to grab a power boost. Guy shrugs it off with a nasty smirk, then shoots, so you're bitter just because Ryuji's getting completely wrecked. The minority rips back into the chaos, snapping at the fear of getting overwhelmed as she rockets straight into the fray. She snaps that she only got caught earlier because it was a cheap shot, and now she's done playing. She yells out the special move, then crashes her blade down with everything she's got, right up until that one missing piece ruins it. Her eyes bulge as she realizes her sword didn't even leave a single scratch on him. He just stands there like it's nothing, tells her the attack flat out failed, and leaves her frozen in total disbelief. Guy slams them with a massive shockwave, blasting Manori and Suzu flying backward. They slam to a stop, and Minori cradles her head as she fires off, Suzu, are you okay? While she keeps apologizing for the whole mess. Suzu's completely out of it. She thinks she might be dead, while everyone else is just relieved she's still breathing. He towers over them like a living shadow, sneering as if they're wasting their last bit of energy just to keep talking. He bursts out laughing and tells them their banter sounds like a last will and testament, especially since he's already planning to kick the bucket. Ryuji snaps and yells that Guy won't get off scot-free, then he. And he makes a last-ditch charge, blasting forward with the Fura Magic Stone's power to finally end it. Guy snatched the punch with one hand so clean and effortless that Ryuji just froze. Stunned someone could shut down an empowered hit that fast. Ryuji realizes this strength is way beyond anything human, while Guy just soaks in that look on his face like it's pure glory. The guy leans in hard and tells him, to his face, that Ryuji's power doesn't even come close to his anymore. Minori is completely frozen. She's meant to be a genius swordsman, but Suzu looks just as wrecked. Like the moment the truth lands, she realizes even a genius mage can't shut this guy down. Guy sneers at Ryuji's setup, calling his special enchantment magic and those stones a total joke. And he calls out Ryuji, saying he's only riding on his big brother's power right here, right now. The guy doesn't beat around the bush. He tells him flat out he's inferior, then asks if that washed-up trash finally gets just how badly he's outmatched. He snaps into action and starts the torture by crushing Ryuji's fist, forcing a raw, helpless groan out of him as the pain takes over while he's promising that the left leg Ryuji used to kick him earlier is next on the list. Guy shoots Ryuji a twisted grin and says once his limbs are shattered and he can't even move, things are about to get brutally nasty. He's planning to butcher Manori and Suzu on the spot while Ryuji's stuck there, forced to watch them get destroyed, helpless. Ryuji can only choke out a painful cry, his face contorting in pure horror as he hears exactly what Guy plans to do to his sisters. Suzu and Lene can't even process what they're seeing. Both of them jerk back and gasp as the whole scene explodes in front of their eyes, and the moment keeps. Guy throws everything he's got into smashing Ryuji's hand down. Ryuji clenches his teeth through the pain. Lene finally steps up, raises her glowing weapon, and aims it straight at Guy, then demands he drop Ryuji right now, but Marie looks completely panicked. She grabs Lene's attention and fires. What do you think you're doing? There's no way you can win this fight. Lene refuses to back off, flashing that fearless look as she swears she knows she's outmatched, and still says, I've got this. She reminds Marie she understood the risks all along, and still keeps that smile on her face even as everything starts to fall apart, and reveals that Marie only resisted Guy at first because she was trying to keep both of them safe. That's when Guy spots her, shoots a terrified, busted-up grin over his shoulder, snaps that they're all insects for lurking there so. Marie snaps, screams at Lene to sprint, and yells for full speed, but it's already too late because that creepy smile spreads across his face as he shrugs it off, like it's no big deal for him at all, and then he practically lights up, eager to hunt down another victim. Guy locks eyes with Lene, twists his face into something terrifying, and snarls that if she's so desperate to die, he'll cut her down first. He grabs the dregs of his power, lunges in hard, and his hand flares with blazing light. He's ready to finish it on the spot. But Lene just freezes in total shock. She can't even twitch as she watches him start to change. His face starts melting and glitching like a busted video game, and as he struggles to shout mage and kill, his voice keeps shattering and slipping away. Suzu and Manori crouch on the sidelines, and while Suzu looks completely lost, Manori can tell something is seriously wrong with him. Nearby, Marie yanks the two young girls in tight, shielding them with her body, and when one girl bursts out that she's terrified, Marie forces herself to breathe steady and promises them, "You are going to be okay." Sean stands there, totally frozen in place, staring at his leader like his eyes can't process what they're seeing because that guy doesn't even look human anymore. Ryuji glares on with a bruised face, eyes locked on the wreckage, and he's left wondering what the hell is happening to Guy. His body dissolves into a boiling mass of black energy, twisting into nightmare shapes, and he blurts out tomorrow and anomalies. But it's all mangled, garbled gibberish. He bolts out into the dark, and everyone's left frozen, staring at one warped, glaring eye in the black, while that voice blurts, "So what is even going on?" Sean watches his leader unravel, then screams, "Dude, you've totally lost it," as he sees his friend turn into that wreck. And Ryuji spots Sean sprinting straight into danger, screams for him to back off because he already knows what that thing is, and it's never safe. Black energy keeps crawling outward while Sean just stands there trembling. His brain completely refusing to catch up, he can only blurt, "What the hell is happening?" As the old guy slips away, the human part vanishes for good, and he erupts into a disgusting, glitchy scream. Marie grabs both girls and yells at them to run right now, but Lana freezes for a heartbeat. Fear gets her. So Marie barrels right up in their faces and yells at them to move now, her eyes blazing, like she's ready to stay and fight to the bitter end. Lana finally snaps out of it, grabs Lena's hand, and they both decide no more hesitating. Then they start backing away from the fight, then Lene snaps to attention when she hears her name and whips around to look back, her face screaming that she can't decide if she's ready to abandon them all in this nightmare. Marie flashes Lena a tiny, heartbreaking smile and begs her to please look after the two little girls because she's ready to face whatever hits next. Lene clamps his hand onto the kids and shouts for Marie, even as panic screams in his throat. She doesn't want to leave them behind, but she knows she has to drag them to safety. Guy bursts out one last human scream as the black energy tears through his body. Lene can't even face it, just frozen there as she screams for Marie, tears streaking down her face as she fights to drag the kids out of the nightmare. Manori is completely frozen, like she can't even move, while Ryuji and Suzu just stare as her transformation kicks in. And yeah, it's getting worse, fast, and they all finally see it. Guy's magic core is slamming the red line, sparking out of control, and going berserk right in front of them. Suzu snaps at the group that the black smoke is pure poison, yelling at everyone to back up. Anyone who inhales that core energy is instantly doomed. The corruption explodes through them and spreads at lightning speed. And when Guy speaks, his voice is totally warped because he's saying he's turning into a chimera, and his body is literally shredding into pieces. Manori freezes in shock, breathlessly whispering his name as she watches her old friend vanish into that thing. Right beside them, the two little girls are bawling their eyes out, begging Len for answers. Where did their sister go? They're terrified out of their minds, but Lene forces a brave smile, tells them everything's going to be all right, and swears they'll save their sister no matter what. Lene snaps her eyes to Ryuji, the focus razor sharp. She calls his name and tells him, no sugarcoating, that the only thing they can do is smash the core before. Things couldn't get worse, so she snaps that since the fusion is still fresh, they've still got a real shot, but only if they move right now, and she breaks off mid-sentence as the clock keeps ticking. Ryuji snaps his gaze back to her, all locked in and steel-eyed, telling her she's right, that there's zero time to spare, so they have to go. So Manori and Suzu flash lean signals to get each other's backs. Manori snaps her blade out with a quick nod, while Suzu raises her staff, ready to move, and both of. They step in to help, and Lene kicks it off. She chants to the earth spirits, daring them to twist the ground and send the monster stumbling. At the same time, Suzu snaps into her own prayer to the god of magic, begging for the power to forge a mistletoe trap that could bind the beast, and the monster tries to move, but it's locked in place. Then the dual spells land dead on a mud snare, clamps it down, heavy branches slam around its body, and it's utterly stuck. And the creature can only choke out a pained grunt, thrashing as the magical vines clamp tighter and pin it in place. Minori spots the opening and rockets upward. With a battle cry, she pours every ounce of power into a razor-sharp strike meant to punch straight through its defenses. And the blade slams home with a thunderous impact. Minori blurts a sharp cry and rips through the follow-through, then keeps the pressure on the monster. Minori keeps her blade poised, screams at the group to brace themselves, and because the monster is still charging forward, she doesn't let up, and Ryuji demands an update on what's going on, and Lene tells him it's still moving fast and getting through it all, and since its wounds sealed up instantly, its regeneration is strong, so that's where. Ryuji snapped to it. This is exactly like that golem fight we had before. He warned them. Even if we stop it cold, breaking its core won't be easy. But Lene flashes a wicked plan. She yanks out a revolver and swears she'll blast it from range. Then she snaps at the crew to line up their shots straight for the magic core. Then she whips around to Ryuji and orders him to enchant her alchemy gun. Ryuji locks eyes with her. He goes still for a heartbeat, whispers her name, and then locks in like he's done overthinking. He locks eyes with her and tells her he's got it, then grips his focus tight as his magic starts to build. The whole squad lunges into action as a giant magic circle blooms beneath them, and they unleash a crushing team attack while Suzu fires up her own chant. She hurls a desperate call to the god of magic, begging for a slice of its power to burst into her hand so she can. She can finally channel the power she needs to swing a magic hammer and take that monster down. Minori blurts out Gei's name, then screams at him to freeze. Stay still, don't move. Suzu hurls her massive Mjolnir hammer spell down, boom. A towering bolt of thunder, energy crashes into, driven straight into the monster as it snarls in pain, caught under the crushing weight of the magic attack, with no way to break free as it. Ryuji watches in disbelief as Guy, even after transforming into a monster, refuses to change one bit, still stubborn to the core. Suzu leans in to check on Minori, asking if she's really okay, and Minori, through the ache, insists she can still push on. So she tells Suzu, we just need to buy time, wait for the other two, while they finish getting ready. Suzu nods. Ryuji starts his enchantment, shouting for power that can pierce through anything until it glares open and fills. The gun Lene stares down at the magic circle, and the words she was warned about last time slam into her head something. It's horrible, but she also knows Marie didn't used to be like this, because she still remembers the time when Marie took serious pride in being a priestess, pouring every ounce of effort into her dreams every single day. Lene suddenly looks back and remembers the truth. Angela was the one who actually invited her first. When they finally formed the party, Marie wasn't like she is now. She told everyone that as a priestess, she only wanted to help people. She leaned in and told them, with my alchemy and potion-making talent, we can reach out and save tons of lives. That was the exact moment Marie stepped in and asked her to join the crew for real, and Lene never ever forgot that kindness. She realizes that even with everything so messed up between them right now, Marie is still one of the most important friends she has. Ryuji just stands there, staring at the ground, drowning in his own past and realizing they're not as different as he wants to believe. He admits that just picturing Guy and the others still makes rage flare in his chest. But trust me, that's only the start of the real story. They stuck together for ages, and he swore he'd never let them turn into monsters or stumble into a fate this grim. So that's it. He's finally decided he's going to finish this, because now he's got a reason to fight that burns hotter than revenge. Lene lowers her gaze, the shadows deep in her eyes, and just nods quietly, gearing up for the next move they have to make. Lene plants her feet, weapon raised, and fires back at Ryuji. It's time for the final battle, and she'll save everyone no matter what it costs. She suddenly replays the moment everything went off the rails, when Marie flipped and got completely obsessed with money. It reached the point where Marie tossed aside her pride as a priestess and crushed her dream of becoming an adventurer just to chase gold, yet Lene still treats her like a friend. Ryuji stares at Guy's smug face in his head, knowing Guy's always been a jerk, but man, this whole mess still twists up his feelings in ways he can't quite explain. He can't stop replaying how Lene yanked him into this mess, yet he never meant for it to spiral so horribly for anyone. Ryuji finally gets it, so that's why they're here right now, and Lene quietly nods like, yep, as they commit and lock in. They both know they've got to reach their old friends and help them while those creepy glowing eyes in the darkness just keep staring them down. Manori and Suzu press deeper in, but a gigantic shadow monster barrels through them, too fast to even breathe back. The creature blasts out a deafening roar and rockets forward, slamming Manori through the air like she weighs nothing. Manori finally lands and blurts out to Suzu right away, and together they rally, backing each other up as they scramble to get everything ready for their last, final stand. The monster gets trapped in a massive spark web, crackling, electricity snaps shut like a net, pinning it in place while the beast bellows in agony. Minority gets slammed by the backlash of that energy, screaming as the power surges crash all around her. She grits her teeth and barrels forward, yelling for Barrel to rip straight through the enemy, driving Suzu. Reeling from the brutal power he's witnessing, the creature finally lets out one last pained grunt as a massive shockwave tears straight through its chest, then it. But it's not over yet. Minori realizes the damage is already healing itself, and she can't believe it's regenerating again after everything that just happened. Suzu takes the hit, shakes it off, and steps forward with razor focus, telling the beast it won't get to recover. She lifts her staff high, shouts to the god of magic, and begs for just a tiny fragment of power to be handed to her. Suzu finishes her prayer and begs for the mistletoe that can finally wipe this monster out. Then she hurls the mistletoe spell, and black spikes starts to slam into the creature's body because the beast gets completely blindsided when a burst of holy light explodes through the dark room, and right when Ryuji and Lene are finally about to make their move, Ryuji thrusts his hand forward and tells Lene, "This is it, now's the moment." Lene snaps forward, eyes locked in, and yells to Marie that she's about to save her right this second. A brutal blast of energy explodes on impact, swallowing the entire area with raw power, and the bullet streaks straight for the target, and Lene's mind flashes to Ryuji how he poured razor-sharp power into that shot, knowing that with this gun, she finally rips through the enemy's shell. Then the impact slams down, and right as that happens, even the monster screams a thunderous roar as its core gets blasted straight into the center of its chest. Minority stares at the blast, then breaks into a relieved grin because they finally landed a real hit, and he's sure of it, he really did it. Suzu's face turns chalk white as she stares at the smoke, and she can't process a single thing. She blurts out, "Is this really happening?" The core starts twitching, and Suzu gasps. This monster is trying to regrow its monocore right in front of them, right now, which slams a wave of panic into Lene. She blurts out Ryuji's name as a blinding light erupts, and out of the dark, the beast's face pops into view, growling like it's screaming, "This isn't over." Ryuji barrels in with everything he's got, shouting at the monster that this nightmare is finally over. He steps right up to it and snarls that it won't get a single second to regenerate. He saw Lene's shot rip a hole in the defense, and he exploded forward to snatch the victory. He drove Cancer's magic stone straight into the beast, and lightning exploded in every direction. Ryuji zeroes in on the whole Lene in the core because he knows that one exact hit point decides everything. The whole monster is about to collapse, starts breaking apart, dissolving into light and smoke as Marie finally snaps her eyes open. She's sprawled on the ground, totally out of it, but Lene locks eyes with her, tears welling fast, and blurts that she's finally awake. Lene yanks her clothes into place, floods her with relief, and blurts how grateful he is that she's finally okay. And then, only Marie could look up at her. Then she whispered Lene's name, and in that moment, she realized she'd been saved. Lene shoots a worried look at Marie, asking if her body is really holding up after everything that went down. Marie is drenched in sweat and completely wiped out, yet she forces out a shaky smile and insists, "I'm fine." Lene whips her focus to Ryuji. He's slumped over like he's been wrecked, and she tells him flat out that he looks way worse than Marie. Ryuji leans in and tells them, "That's not a real threat. That's the Ansfar stone's massive recoil hitting you. It was one of the highest grade magic stones he could hand over, meant to crank someone's physical power through the roof, and yeah, it definitely leaves a mark." He forces a crooked smile, admitting the pain is so brutal he can't even move, and it even stings when he tries to talk. Leaning in with a serious glare, Lene stops everything and tells Marie, "There's one thing you absolutely have to know." She demands to know where that synthetic magic core really came from, replaying how totally unhinged Walter looked with it. Marie drops her gaze and blurts out Loudinger, then explains that he said the stone was handed to him by a man who's nursing a deadly grudge against their group. Suzu starts racking her brain over who it could be, maybe even the Prime Minister, then snaps back to reality and remembers that guy should have been arrested ages ago. Marie snaps the puzzle together and realizes the guy they're talking about is the exact same one Suzu mentioned then. Suzu says he just busted out of prison not long ago, and it's only getting worse because, and she remembers it so clearly, those guards storming in and hauling Walter off the second their conversation ends, while the whole group just stands there, stunned, absorbing it all. Marie casts the elf sisters a gentle smile and tells them she's truly sorry they had to survive something so terrifying, everything that happened, and everything they had to endure. But Lana just shakes her head and cuts her off, saying that's not even close. She blurts out a huge thank you for keeping them safe from that guy, and Lena jumps in with a bright big smile, thanking her right back. Marie doesn't add a single word. She swings both girls into a tight, warm hug. 2 months slam by, and the story whips over to a giant, loud, bustling port city where huge trade ships are already docked in the middle of town, right in the busiest heart of it all. Suzu is absolutely soaking up the excitement, shouting to Ryuji that she's dying to snag some grilled squid from one of those stalls. Lena's just as pumped. She spots fresh herring for sale a little further down and yells to Manori, like, "Come on, you've got to see this." Lena leans in and asks Suzu what she's going to eat, and Suzu grins. That grilled fish, it's rich, juicy, and insanely delicious because it's in season right now. Ryuji watches everyone tear around the market, and the restlessness in the air makes him stop and wonder, why is everybody freaking out like this? He clocks it instantly. Minori is way more hyper than everyone else in the room. Lene strolls right beside him, flashing that grin and asking, "Isn't it awesome seeing it all this alive?" She tells him it's the festival for the reconstruction, so he should stop overthinking and just soak it all in. She admits, with total honesty, that she's just over the moon the harbor repairs wrapped up way ahead of schedule. And Ryuji nods hard along with her, both of them staring out at the ships like it's something straight out of a dream. He starts replaying everything that went down with Guy, and his mind latches onto Marie's promise she swore she'd whip those three back into shape. Ryuji thinks, if Marie truly changed for the better, we can trust her to handle everything. It finally feels like they've clawed their way into real peace. So he takes Lene's advice and dives headfirst into the festival like it's exactly what they deserve. Right then, Thor spots him in the crowd, throws his hand up in a big wave, and shouts to grab his attention. One of the locals finally catches up to Ryuji to thank him for the magic stones from the other day, swearing the whole job felt way easier because of them. Ryuji just grins it off, says it's nothing, then asks him to keep backing their workshop, and the guy lights up and agrees right away. Another woman calls out to Lene too, waving like, "Hey, don't forget me," and it throws Lene completely off balance because the woman beams as she thanks her for the medicine, saying her husband's back pain is finally gone and he's absolutely thrilled. Lene can't stop a playful giggle as she tells the lady she's just so relieved this medicine worked like a miracle. Suddenly, some dude shoves a huge hunk of meat into Ryuji's arms as a thank you, and Ryuji just stands there completely thrown off. While someone else lobs a huge striped fish over to Lene, they tell her she's got to haul some of their stuff home too. Before Ryuji can even catch his breath, a massive crowd of locals swarms in, thrusting gifts and roaring thanks at him, and he can barely keep up with everything being shoved into his hands. Suzu and Minori stand there, stunned out of their minds, watching their friends get straight up buried under a mountain of food the townspeople piled on them. It hits the whole group like a wave, standing shoulder to shoulder in the street, staring at how far they've come, and realizing this town doesn't just know them, it needs them. Right in the middle of town, the group just hangs around, then someone yells from behind them that they look like they're living their best life. It's Walter von Reichner, and he strolls in grinning, telling them every bit of energy in the city is powered by their hard work. He glances over at the elf sisters too, proudly pointing out how insanely well their fields have been doing lately. Walter goes on to claim the whole market is booming because of them, and he's flat out depending on everyone to keep pushing this good work. Lana fires off a polite reply, and little Lena explodes with joy. She cheers nonstop, grinning like the happiest kid alive then. Then Walder snaps his attention back to Ryuji and Lene, his tone turning sharp as he speaks to them face to face. He tells them that once the festival finally wraps up, he wants them to come over to his manor for a visit leaving though. They lean in, grinning at his promise that something surprisingly cool is waiting for them. And before long, boom, they roll up to this massive estate. Right as they step inside, Setsu is waiting fully dressed in her royal outfit, grinning like she's been counting the minutes and saying, "Good to see you again." Lene and Ryuji just froze on the spot. Ryuji barely squeaked out that she's the princess. The princess says, "Call me Cece, keep it casual." And Ryuji can barely force out her name, while Cece just grins and nods like it's nothing, leaving Lene frozen in dead silence. Cece peers out toward the estate and blurts that she didn't come here just to hang around. She rushed into town to check the harbor. But then she realized this city is different. Great, top-tier food and fresh produce are rolling in everywhere she looks. She lights up as she talks about how amazing it feels to see everyone here looking so healthy and full of life. Cece swings back to the crew and says the amazing vibe in the city is probably because of the hard work they've been putting in, and Ryuji suddenly gets bashful, rubbing the back of his head as he admits they've absolutely been helping out. Ryuji cuts straight to the heart of it, telling Lady Cece he's totally out of magic stones, so he can't pull off what he did last time. Setsu's eyes widen, and he mutters that it's a total shame he can't redo that performance. So Ryuji scratches his head, staring at her crushed expression, and realizes she was probably banking on him to admit they were out of supplies. He tells her, "It's perfect because even without the stones, Lene can still whip up a potion that'll level up the soil quality." Ryuji says the plan is solid, but the ground and the environment will demand a few quick tweaks. So, since the medicine's already working wonders in Salzstadt, he can step up and personally swear that it really does the job. Cece perks up, listens, and goes, "Got it." She admits it's a cool idea, but then she hits pause because she's got one huge concern, and it's this. She can't stop asking herself if anyone could possibly brew enough medicine to blanket every single field across the entire kingdom. Ryuji shoots her a smug, confident look and says he's already mapped out a fix for that exact problem. And he whips out a document, flashing the entire recipe and instructions Lene wrote for the potion, while Lene's freaking out in the background, losing it. Lene is totally blindsided, and he blurts out in panic, demanding to know why Ryuji is even lugging that thing around in the first place. Ryuji leans in and reminds her they already agreed to sell his recipes to keep the shop alive, and then he drops, "I knew this day would come." Lene looks totally rattled and blurts that even if they talk it out, she still needs a minute to get her head back on straight. After they pull it off and save the king, Ryuji leans in, tells her she's got nothing to fear, then fires off, is she really doubting her own work just to get a reaction out of him? Lene snaps back, saying those are totally different, and she'd never be reckless enough to hand over something she isn't sure about, then tells Ryuji to see for himself just how deadly effective her work really is. She snaps the point home without her medicine. The Ansvar backlash would have kept dragging on for way longer. And Setsu finally speaks up, praising the medicine Lene makes as genuinely wonderful, leaving Lene stunned, speechless. Ryuji meets Lene's gaze and blurts that he fell for her work the very second he laid eyes on it, like a craftsman who knows real skill when he sees it. And he declares, "From now on, we're teaming up at Altina, using our strengths to make our work known to the whole world." Two of them, an enchanter and an alchemist, working side by side to forge breakthroughs that could brighten the future for as many people as possible. Ryuji asks her if it doesn't sound incredible, and Lene just stands there, soaking it all in like she can't blink. As Cece leaps right back into the chat, he boasts that the castle has the finest facilities and the best court alchemist money can buy. She's absolutely convinced that if she stacks those resources with Lene's recipes, they'll ignite a full-blown agricultural revolution across the whole country. And then finally she lets out a tiny smile and admits, "Yeah, I guess that's true." Lene snaps her head up, stunned out of nowhere when someone yells her name, It's Cece. She flashes a warm smile and asks if she'll sit down so they can work through every last detail. Lene doesn't hesitate for a heartbeat. She bows deep and blurts that she's in, while the others just freeze and watch. That night, the moon blazed over the city as Ryuji and the girls strode through the main square. Ryuji tilts his head to the sky, soaking up that rare, quiet moment, while the rest of the crew crowds in right behind him. So much has changed since then, like the burn mine finally blasting back to life and starting up for work again. And now that the harbor's fully restored and the magic stones are finally rolling again, it feels like fate just shoved them forward like they've got the wind at their backs. Once word of the soil improvement potion hits the whole kingdom, everything's finally going to kick into gear for real. Ryuji can feel the hard times coming, but with Altina by his side, he's convinced they'll smash through anything. Watching him, Minori blurts out that her big brother finally looks like he's actually having fun for once. Ryuji whips his head back to Suzu and admits that even just picturing what's next sends his heart into a full-on sprint. He follows it with a wink and a thumbs up, basically saying that craftsmen are at their happiest the moment they're free to build whatever they want. The girls clock it. Minori looks absolutely thrilled, while Suzu and Lene just flash him a warm, knowing smile. Beneath the moonlight, Ryuji leans in and tells them, when they finally get some free time, to help him hunt down materials. And Minori's completely in. She pushes him on, right on cue, while Suzu insists he can drop it all on her shoulders. Ryuji freezes for a beat, his seriousness creeping in. Then he grins and drops. There's one more thing. With the workshop finally up and running for real, he can't stop thinking, should they hang a sign so everyone knows where the place is? Minori's eyes light up. She throws her hand in the air and screams that she should be the one to draw the pictures, but Suzu shuts it down in a heartbeat, saying Minori's art looks like it could summon an evil god, so it's a hard no. Lene goes pale with worry, turns to Suzu, and demands to know what kind of drawings does Manori actually create.